Time is after 10 a.m. Meeting was properly posted, and call the meeting to order. Item number 2, discussion possible action to approve the minutes from the special meeting on January 19th, 2017. Anybody need copies of the minutes?
Seems to be good to me.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Yep.
All right, motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 3. I'd like to defer that for just a little bit until our attorney gets here, if that's okay.
Sir, would you pass me an agenda?
Oh, yeah.
I am ill prepared.
Do we need a motion for that, or can we just move on to number 4?
You're the chair.
Well, I'm not a Robert's Rule of Orders person.
I don't think we follow Robert's Rule of Orders. So.
Let's move to item 4, if possible. Item 4, discussion possible action to review, edit, change current draft of the employee handbook, and create a new draft of the employee handbook. As I've gone back and looked back through the handbook, not counting the edits that the DA's office has made, there's just a few things that I see that possibly we may need to consider slight wording changes. And I'm going to start on page, section 1.1, on page 2 of the draft. And it says, it's the policy of each Oklahoma County elected official. And throughout the handbook it says each Oklahoma County elected official. And is that the proper wording, or should we say it's the policy of Oklahoma County?
Does the handbook still allow for individual officers to have their own policies, which could be even stronger than this or somewhat different than this?
Yes.
Then I would leave it as
Then you would leave it as it is?
I like each Oklahoma County elected
Okay.
official.
All right.
It just leaves some areas open too, and Jonas, you know this, under each policy, it states that it's up to the elected official, so they could change any policy at any time, or go against, or go for, but the way it's written now, that's the way it has been written.
Okay. All right. Good.
I was for your deal, Dan, but I think, we got outvoted just now.
Okay. I'm fine. I'm just throwing that out there. Page 7. It's under the policy on harassment and discrimination. The section that says complaints related to discrimination/sexual harassment. There's a sentence about the middle of that paragraph that says employees should report such conduct to their human resource representative or their elected official. I'd like to propose that we add the words "or any elected official."
Where was that in?
About the middle of the page, that says employees should report such conduct to their human resource representative or their elected official.
You see the sentence above that where it has it underlined?
Right below it.
Right below, yeah. Between D and discrimination, do we need to remove
No,
that?
it is below.
Yeah, the little underscore. Yeah, that needs to come out.
Yeah. Dan, for clarification, if I may, there's before the sentence you're referring to, it also with the underscore, has the language, or their Oklahoma County elected official.
Yeah.
This is, you know, the witnessing of it. So are you proposing to change that from there to any, as well as then the sentence that says, in the event that a discrimination is made to supervisor,
Yes.
that should also say, or any elected official as opposed to their elected official? You see what I'm saying? There's two different references to quote their elected official in that paragraph.
Actually, there's three.
Can I follow up on
Yeah.
Randy's? I think if it's, let's say if it's me sexually harassing one of my employees, then they could come to you as the policy's written, or they could go to Willa. Correct?
But what if Willa is the issue?
Okay, and that's where I'm going. So I think if it's a downline event within a county officer's purview, it should remain the supervisor, the HR representative of that county official or that county official themselves. I think if the act involves a county official, then it should be to any elected official. But I don't think if it's within District 1 that they should be able to go to District 4.
So under that scenario, the first reference to their Oklahoma County official would stay, and then the next two references would change.
In the event that the supervisor or their elected official.
I think, Randy, after, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seventh line from the bottom, where it says elected official, and then the next is in the event that a discrimination or sexual harassment complaint. I think what we could just do is put in language that says, in the event the discrimination or sexual harassment complaint involves an elected official, the employee can go to any elected official.
What about
what you're talking about?
No, right, but if we go up a little bit further, because we covered that in the event that the supervisor is the source, and I think what we could do is just say in the event that the supervisor or elected official is the source or is responsible for the discrimination or sexual harassment, employee should report and resource representative or any elected official. No.
No, because if Cody's supervising employee Y,
I see what you're saying.
then they would come to me or to Willa.
I see what
or to
you're saying.
Dan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. And again, the very first reference then, which would be the fourth line from the top, you're proposing that stays their Oklahoma County elected official because, again, we want to keep it within the department or the office.
1662.
And again, the second reference, you want to keep that. And then you're proposing new language, like a new sentence be added.
Yeah.
That essentially mirrors the one before in the event that the elected official is the source or is responsible. An employee should report such contact, blah, blah, blah.
Let's see if you like this. How about this sentence that says, in the event an elected official is the source or responsible for the discrimination and or sexual harassment, a complaint may be made to any elected official.
And then all the other references will just remain as their elected official.
Yeah.
Where are you proposing putting that in?
7 lines from the top after elected officials.
Yeah, right here, Dan. Right here. That's where we're talking about the reporting of, and then the end event next talks about the failure to act.
Amendments to be submitted as as follows: after the period, page 7, line 7, and before the words, quote, in the event.
Okay.
That's how we would say it, right?
And then the wording again is, read yours.
Okay. In the event an elected official is the source or is responsible for the discrimination or sexual harassment, a complaint may be made to any elected official. You can wordsmith that, but that's the gist of it. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit. But the gist is, if Willa Johnson is harassing someone in our office, we could go to Butch Freeman. And then
Any edits to that? Does that sound okay?
You pass.
Matthew, did you get that?
I will.
I did.
Okay, you did.
Are you good
Okay.
with it, John?
Mm-hmm. All right, read it.
Yes.
Will you read it one more time?
Yeah, it's not exactly, it's going to change. In the event an elected official is the source and responsible for the discrimination and or sexual harassment, a complaint may be made to any elected official.
Okay.
Time out on that just one second. I do have a question, because we don't use that phraseology, a complaint. We say report throughout.
Yeah, however it is.
So just to keep it
consistency, whatever the word needs to be.
employees should report
Yes.
to any elected official.
Okay.
And satisfy it.
Yeah, that's.
All right. Is there a motion on that? That additional language?
Yes. With Randy's amendment.
Can you repeat your amendment to the amendment?
For consistency, we're just going to add it. This says report, I think is that right?
Report
instead of complaint. And so his language should make a complaint.
Gotcha.
And instead, say, in the event the elected official is responsible for.
But does that include, would Dan still be in that loop, or whoever holds his position?
Yeah, I think I think from the previous language, HR is still
Okay.
an option
Okay.
for reporting that.
It just gives them one more step.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Is there a motion to include that language in the complaints related to discrimination / sexual harassment? Policy 2.4, or section 2.4 on page 7.
Yes.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Lisa, I've got some things that I'm kind of editing,
Okay.
and then we'll come back to the DA piece, if that's okay. In section, the drug testing policy, it's on page 16.
Can we still do that with the passage of, say, question 780 and 781? Just checking.
Yeah.
Aren't your friends about to change all the old people anyway?
It's policy.
Your old friends.
Your friends too.
It's policy 2.7. It's on page 16. The section that says confidentiality says all information related to employee drug testing will be treated with strict confidence. All records relating to drug testing will be kept in the elected officials' human resources department, separate from personnel files. I would, and these records are maintained in a secure location with controlled access. I would like to amend that to say that these records will be kept in the Oklahoma County Health and Safety Office. We're the ones that generally administer the drug testing policy. We handle the drug and alcohol testing. And we maintain those records.
What about the offices that don't?
Your county clerk's office is the only one that doesn't.
Now, what do we currently do?
They're in our office except for the county clerk's office. And they have a separate, they do their own drug testing, and they're the only department that does their own drug testing.
It's always been that way?
Not always been that way. It changed. They decided to do their own 7 or 8 years ago, I guess.
Before my time.
Yeah.
With regard to that, when there's an accident in that office of some type, are you all still notified to investigate because you're ultimately helping with the workers' comp and other issues?
Depending on what goes on, yeah. I mean, we've seen the reports come through, the injury reports come through. I don't know that we've sent anybody from the clerk's office out for drug testing because of an accident. I don't remember any.
Could they just, if they keep the method they're doing now, could they just submit the records to your office?
Sure. But we have a protocol where we maintain the records, and they are secure. And we work very closely with McBride on the drug testing to make sure that those records...
Is the county clerk's office using the same criteria to test that the rest of the county is?
I don't know. And I don't know for sure why they don't use...
If not, then wouldn't we be potentially subjecting employees to different treatment?
Yes. And I'm not sure that with a new elected official, it's not time to try and move those back to the Health and Safety Office. We do have drug testing funds set aside in the budget, in the general government budget.
Will somebody tell me why it shouldn't be uniform for all offices?
I've got no answer for that. It should be. It should be uniform and everybody subjected to the same criteria.
I make that motion, we do. If everybody else does, everybody should.
Isn't there language in the handbook essentially that says, I mean, if you're going to, it's the way it used to be, correct me if it's wrong. If I wanted to have a different policy, if I proposed a different policy and she was okay with it, then the budget board is supposed to sign off on it.
Correct.
So if the county clerk's office wanted Mark to continue to separately drug test, it sounds like it would have to come to the budget board, and the budget board would have to okay that as a deviation from this policy. I think once this is adopted, the county clerk should automatically fall under this unless they request a change. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
In this policy, does it mention who and what department does the testing?
Well, all elected officials test. Yeah, it states that all elected officials must test according to Title 40, I think. But the question here is, where are those drug test records kept? And it says it's kept in the elected officials' HR office, which again, the big offices, have their own HR, yet it's kept at Health and Safety, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point, John. I'm not sure anywhere in the policy does it say that Oklahoma County Health and Safety will administer the drug testing policy.
But we're talking about two different things, I think. Here we're specifically talking about post-accident drug testing, which should, in my opinion, be standardized.
No, that's not. I mean, this is
all job applicants.
This is all drug testing.
I missed that.
All records relating to drug testing.
I moved to add that section to page 16 under confidentiality.
Okay.
What section?
The confidentiality section on page 16, add that all records will be kept in health and safety.
Oklahoma County Health and Safety Office.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. We got a motion and a second.
Oklahoma, just for clarification, Oklahoma County Health and Safety Office, then separate from personnel files.
Yes.
Okay. You will keep
hiring an applicant, records as well?
Yes,
Because it's all mine, right?
yes,
Okay.
we have all those, as well as any post-accident.
Right.
Or cause. Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second to add that on the section confidentiality. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And just one point of clarification, that's exactly what you do right now for every county official. It's their personal record, and the drug thing.
We don't do personnel records for everybody, but we do the drug testing.
Okay.
Pre-employment, post-accident, for cause, everything that's outlined under the guidelines of the law that we can do.
Primary is rated.
Yeah.
Does the elected official have the ability to maintain those also?
Only if they follow these guidelines, but they don't have access to McBride's records.
They don't have it anyhow. Okay. They either summed them up or summed them down. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
All right, in the next section below that, under information, where it says elected official, the test record shall be the property for the elected official. And I'm not sure we don't just change that to Oklahoma County or Oklahoma County Health and Safety. The elected official, or the next sentence down, elected official or the representative will not release such records. Drug testing records may be released by the elected official. Again, all those references to elected official, I'm not sure shouldn't be Oklahoma County Health and Safety, since we maintain those records, and they are maintained in a confidential manner. Thoughts?
But again, as it currently stands, and I'll use the treasurer's office as an example, you maintain in the treasurer's office, doesn't?
Correct.
So when Butch hires a new employee, their drug screens are coming through you?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, the only place it's not happening is with the clerk's office.
Would you read back the language, the proposed language one more time?
Test records shall be the property, and I'm not sure "for" is the right word, of, it says currently the elected official, and I'm not sure the wording shouldn't be either Oklahoma County or Oklahoma County Health and Safety. And then the next sentence down, the elected official or their representative. And I'm thinking there that Oklahoma County Health and Safety will not release. Anywhere else down there it says the elected official, I'm thinking it should say Oklahoma County Health and Safety.
What about when it says if they're named parties in a lawsuit, should we change that to Oklahoma County? It'd be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th line down.
Probably Oklahoma County or Oklahoma County Board of County Commissioners. They're going to be the party in the lawsuit.
It's the only place where it kind of varies.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Because we all can be a little sensitive to what ours is ours and what's not is not. I would say test records should be the property of Oklahoma County and retained in the office of the Oklahoma County and retained in the Oklahoma
County Health and Safety Office. Okay, I'm good with that.
That way it doesn't appear that it's a land grab by, because it's not.
I'm good with that.
I'm just,
It's duplicative.
I agree, but it's not it's making it clear that it's not an attempt at a land grab.
And then where it says elected official in other places, do we just want to put the name Oklahoma County in there? Since we're defining that the records will be held by the Health and Safety Office.
So you're saying throughout that paragraph, just to change elected officials, Oklahoma County Health and Safety Office?
Right.
I think to be consistent, that would make sense.
Okay. Is there a motion to make those changes?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Section 2.30 on page 40. Section called security checks. And it defines that desks and other storage devices may be provided, but that there is the possibility of search, and Oklahoma County retains the right to do the search, and it gives you some I'm sorry, let me back up. It's section 2.29, weapons policy. And it defines weapons, things that are not allowed. All types of firearms, switchblade knives, knives with blades longer than 4 inches, corkscrews, razor blades, dangerous chemicals, chemical sprays, explosives, ammunition. And nothing in this policy is meant to violate state or federal laws that supersede this policy. Should we consider adding a line there that says Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office security guidelines may further restrict items in some cases? Because I know we have pretty tight tight security in this building, the courthouse as well. And I know somebody tried to carry a fork in one day, and they wouldn't allow that, a metal fork. Knitting needles. Things like that. Or does it need to be defined any further?
I think if those guys down at security desk says you can't bring that in, that's good enough, and if there's some issues, then it can be dealt with.
Okay. I'm good with that. Brandon, any comments?
I'm just finishing up reading it.
Self-serving.
I mean, I think it kind of highlights where it says other objects carried for the purpose of injuring or intimidating other people may be considered dangerous items. That's kind of already,
Okay.
To me,
Okay.
I mean, I think that, if you're here for a VPO hearing and, you got an ice pick, I mean.
Okay. All right. I'm good with that. I just.
Even though you're on a snow cone stand, it doesn't,
Yeah. Okay.
There's a problem with being an attorney. I freely admit that. I think it can be clearer, but we might have to add more words. Does that make sense? Because I know, obviously, we have the sheriff's deputies and others who are carrying weapons, right? We may have other authorized personnel, depending on what the state does with relation to county officers, DAs, and prosecutors, and judges can, you never know. So, and I don't know where that's specifically accepted or stated.
Actually, the last sentence of that policy, it says exceptions to this policy may be allowed for law enforcement and others as allowed by state statutes. Top of page 40.
Yeah.
Violate.
Last sentence in that paragraph.
May be allowed.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that. I mean, I think if we just say, with the exception of, you know, authorized individuals as defined by state statute, something like that, and properly secured in a locked vehicle. Because, I mean, if the state says that DAs can carry on county property, state statutes say that, we're not a private entity that can say we have a no-gun policy. I mean, we're an extension of state government, so I think we have to allow it.
Well, at the top of that,
I wouldn't let Holt's Claw come in with his weapon, or a fire GA come in with their weapon.
Right.
So I like the name.
No, I mean a current.
Well, Randy, to accomplish what you're...
A current DA.
Yeah.
Right.
It could be, I think Randy's right, it's more words than rewriting a paragraph, but what I'm envisioning is instead of the last sentence, talking about the exclusions, the exceptions, that the first sentence is the exception, and it says, unless otherwise provided by law, Oklahoma County wishes to maintain. Is that?
I like that.
And then in the event they change 9 laws this year that says 30 people, we're not having to come back and change this all the time. So unless otherwise provided by law, Oklahoma County wishes to maintain. And you may have to completely rewrite the section.
I don't think you do if you put that.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll ask our counsel there, but I mean, because we don't want to rewrite the policy. I mean, there's a proposal out there now that any county officer can carry their weapon anywhere they want to. You know, again, we don't know if that's going to pass, but to keep from having to rewrite to keep us in compliance.
and then eliminate the last sentence of that section that says exceptions to this policy may be allowed for law enforcement and others that's allowed by state statutes.
Yeah, I don't think you need it if you put Joe's language.
But that can be stricken.
Right.
Okay.
As duplicative, but I mean, again, if we have it in there, it's not going to cancel out anything we put at the beginning. It's just not necessary. So unless
I say leave it in.
okay.
So you're saying leave it in the last sentence in?
And as.
And add. Okay. All right. You're wording at the beginning.
It may be inconsistent if we say unless provided by law. We're saying we can't limit, but then that language says may be allowed, and that. Again, I know I'm going deep into legislative construction here, and it may be unnecessary, but if it says may be allowed, then that appears to give us the authority to limit, although we've already said, as provided by law, we can't. So, I don't know, I'm probably nitpicking, I'm not trying to.
Okay.
I'm reading this like legislation, not a personnel policy, and that's probably not.
I understand your point then.
You see, because it's
May,
not the
the
may
big word,
language.
yeah.
Okay, is there a motion on section 2.29?
I want to, if we just delete that last sentence with Joe's language at the front, I want to know if that's good.
Joe's language at the front is?
Just mark, unless otherwise provided by law.
Which means law enforcement's covered. Judges,
DAs. Okay. Is there a motion on that section? The addition of the wording at the beginning and the deletion of the last sentence?
Do we want to take elected official out of that in Oklahoma County?
Well, that's kind of what we addressed at the very beginning, right? Whether we were going to address it as Oklahoma County or each elected official.
Okay.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? All right. Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I've got two more, and then we'll, I think, be done with number 4, unless others have. On page 57, this is part of policy 4.14, workers' compensation leave of absence. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down.
No. Can we stop for a second? I just got something.
Okay.
Go to 2.30.
I was gonna come back to it.
All right.
Can you guys I would ask the committee to take a minute and read that entire section and see if you guys have any heartburn, because I have extreme heartburn.
Okay, what page?
It's marked page 40, 2.30.
Okay. Now, this is current language, that's correct?
It is current language.
It needs to go.
So with this language, someone could go to, say, Sheree, and say, Sheree, let me see your purse, I need to inspect your purse.
Right, that's
Anytime there's no warrant, no.
And you could unwittingly, let's say she has a medical condition, you would then discover privileged medical information. This is a bad, for that reason and many more, this is a bad deal. And I'm sorry that I haven't caught it before, guys.
And I don't think that the language has changed in several iterations of the handbook.
I would move that section 2.30 be removed.
If something something would prompt, let's assume that everything's up and that something would prompt somebody to say, to do something that's listed in here.
Okay, but if
How would they deal with it if we totally
let's say Cody suspects I have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be handled under the policy that we just worked on firearms are prohibited. I think you could then, under that section, address that.
So if we think Mr. So-and-so's
or you
got a fork or whatever, he's
contact him and say, hey, Joe brought a gun to work, and then
but still, how would you deal with it immediately?
All right.
I know what there's a reason it's there, but that's a poorly worded reason.
Let me throw another scenario out. We've got the yard, and there's reason to believe that a worker at the yard has thrown some county tools into his lunch pail and taken them home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a reasonable policy for that?
I mean, what you do, again, after with or without prior notice, you would insert something like counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, upon reasonable suspicion, something like that, so you at least have a standard.
And with consent, maybe.
You're gonna have to articulate something. You're violating somebody's civil rights. I mean, that's the.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you don't have a right to the privacy of your work desk, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so, I mean, your boss can come in and say, I'm looking through the drawers of your desk, and it doesn't matter what you have in there. But, I mean, I'm with Joe that it says, yeah, you're walking into the office, and your county official had set up this checkpoint, say, hey, I want to look in everybody's purse on the way in today, and you kind of, what's going on here? You have that scenario like you just said, so there's no standard here at all. I mean, it's just like no reasonable suspicion, no probable cause, and you don't need something that high of standard, I don't think, but you do need some standard there, and it is overreaching. I think, Mark, you were talking about the see something, say something duty at the end of that paragraph, that if we see something as an employee, well, that's a suspicious looking package there, we have a duty to say something. And so we have to be careful about removing that, you know, so that employees just be like, not my problem, I thought so-and-so had a gun, but...
Under what guise does the Oklahoma City Thunder, for example, you know, legally, how can they say, hey, we're either searching your bags or you go home and you forfeit your ticket? I mean, so under what premise are they using, you know, because I mean, I certainly understand there's a time and a place for X-ray machines and so on and so forth, but, you know, with the ability to just walk up to anybody randomly and routinely without warrant, just say, hey, you know, empty your pockets, I think you're certainly overreaching, like you said, so I don't know.
Written on the back of their ticket.
So
you can send to everybody by it.
So then I guess the point becomes, I certainly don't know that, my personal opinion, I don't know if we need to scratch it all together, but I certainly think that we need to clean it up at best, because, I mean, like I said, I certainly see a purpose of I mean, we do checkpoints at the sheriff's office, you know, for obvious reason. Federal law requires it, so, you know, so I certainly think that there's a purpose for it, but instead of somebody asking if your pockets, you walk through your crisscross.
Well, we're gonna see this again, correct? We made a number of changes. I would suspect that the changes that we're making are gonna be incorporated in the document. We're gonna take one final look, is that right?
That's probably true.
Then I'm still for taking this out, and if somebody at some point wants to offer something differently, but...
And I will say this, the way it's written, it assumes the container is inside a county vehicle. Again, I don't know what difference that makes.
Well, but the person is guest and other storage devices.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Also include county vehicles.
if you come in and throw your purse into a filing cabinet or something, or a desk or anything.
Yeah. I mean, I would no more walk into Willa's office and go through Jerry's purse.
Yeah. But you could with this policy.
Okay. Well, and it's, each Oklahoma County official or their representative has the right to search containers, so they're licensed by the Oklahoma County employee. And there's no standard at all, it's just a blanket authority.
I know we use that system of words a lot, you know, to where you can change it at any time, but I think like Keith mentioned before, I think you just get into a situation where you start treating employee X different than employee Y. Just because of currently who's in office, I mean.
Does anybody have any substitute language for this?
I'm working on that.
I would like to say, I'm personally fine with routine checkpoints. I mean, when I go to OU games and Thunder games, I mean, I get to my pockets because that's what I'm asked to do, but I think if they were to say, hey, by the way, we're also going to go search your car, probably not.
Let me see what you got built though.
Right. Well, they certainly, yeah. You can tell them no.
Your wife said you got
I'm probably gonna.
all your girlfriends.
I'm probably gonna. I'm not worried about that, but I'm probably gonna embarrass my wife or something like that.
I got a motion on the table to take it out.
All right, we have,
and I'll let Randy keep working, but it's a contextual thing, and right, if we suspect theft, then that's a violation of the policy. So I think I could then say to the employee X saw you put a tool into your lunch pail, will you let me see the pail? No. Well, if I can press it further, and I can call the sheriff's department, and they can come out and do a formal investigation. And I think there are ways to get where we want to go without having this overreaching section.
all right, we have a motion. Let me ask the question, do we take the language out but leave the bullet point for possible
I hate the term security check.
So your motion includes taking out
removing it all and remove and renumber.
Okay. Is there a second?
Felt like repeal and replace.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
But you said the key
Mr.
word. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, let me interject here because I'll likely vote against the whole repeal of this because I'd rather try and rewrite the language now. And so I'm just giving you a heads up on that. And if it's okay, I mean, what I might propose, I agree with you, take out the language security checks. And I don't know what we want to call it, but I would leave everything in. This is just if I were going to move for an amendment. Everything in up to with or without prior notice, which is line 4, and insert upon reasonable suspicion, period. I would then delete all of the language about containers may include, but are not limited to. Then I would leave the language containers, but take out are subject and put may be subject to search whether or not they are locked. Then I would take out everything after that that said each Oakland County official has the right, blah, 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 up through employee. And then where it says if any employee, I would put if an employee, again, just kind of for clarity. If an employee observes any dangerous item, leave that, and then go to the last line, violations of this policy may result in discipline, as opposed to will result in discipline. Because again, I see that for some reason you've brought a large serving fork into your office. I don't know why, maybe there's a potluck I wasn't invited to, but then you use that to stab your office mate. I didn't report that I have the duty to report the dangerous item, and now I'm subject to discipline because I didn't. Well, yes, I may have been under the duty to say, I don't know why coworker X had that super large fork, but my elected official says, well, none of us did, but I'm not going to discipline you for that. Okay, that's a lot of words for the discussion on the motion. That is to just remove this entire section.
Knowing that I'm hard-headed, you'll indulge me, but let's go ahead and vote on this thing and see where it's at. And if it fails, then we take up we do something that Randy's talking about.
Fair enough.
All right, we have a motion and a second to remove entirely section 2.30 security checks. Any other discussion prior to the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Motion fails. Okay. Is there further action on this item? Or a new motion?
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question of the committee if anybody has a better title for 2.30 than security checks? Like certain items subject to check upon reasonable suspicion, I don't know what we would.
What's wrong with security checks?
It sounds like I think it sounds like a random. I was trying not to say that, but yeah, it's just kind of. He said it sounds Gestapo like, just kind of show us your papers.
Safety check.
No,
Check your safety.
That's like a tornado drill.
Yeah.
Right.
Safety/1.
If we start changing the name, I'm going back with Joe.
Well, because it's not just for security purposes. It's for suspicion of fraud, larceny.
Well, all that falls under
embezzlement.
security.
Yeah.
this language, I think that's somewhat objectionable is the personal privacy of some of these individuals. If you limit this section to just letting people know, hey, look, your company vehicle and your company desk, there's not privacy. I mean, all of us have had the employee that's been off on vacation leave and had to go to their desk and pull open the drawer and try to find something on their desk. We want to be able to continue to do that. It could be for anything. I'm just saying, if we take out the language that deals with individuals' personal property and make sure that if somebody wants to look at that, then they pursue calling the police or something if they suspect somebody has something in their personal purse or toolbox or briefcase. I think that we just call this maybe county property inspection checks, maybe, and that way it would also cover the security interest. If you see something that looks suspicious or isn't where it's supposed to be, report that as well. And also letting our employees know, look, you have no privacy rights in your personal desk, your computer, or your county vehicle.
I got an idea. Can I?
Yeah.
While I'm thinking about this, I really like what Lisa said about the desk. My objection is personal property, a purse. If my wallet is laying on the desk, if I got a Christmas present from my kid, I'll tell you to shove it up your rear end. I think what we could do, rather having this as all-encompassing, I think you could rename it something akin to access to county property, and that would deal with desk and file cabinet, et cetera, to cover what Lisa talked about. And then county vehicles, we have a separate section that deals with county vehicles, so we can insert the language necessary into that deal. And then we just did a section on weapons, so we could, under the weapons policy, put if any employee observes any dangerous item on Oklahoma property, then you can. So it's, the weapons portion is in the weapons policy, the vehicle portion is in the vehicle policy, and the desk and file cabinets and the right of access to those for somebody who's on vacation. I fully understand it, because he needs to get in my desk for that reason. And we take out everything else, and it's much less.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like we made a melting pot of 6 sections right here in one. It really frustrated it up.
So starting that accordingly, we just delete all that language until we get to if any employee.
Let me see. I can. You guys want to move on, skip this, and I can.
Because I think I like your proposal. So desk and other storage devices, that stays. I think we'll say this also includes all Oklahoma County vehicles, period. We leave it at that, and then we have that separate county vehicle policy.
Should we just say property instead of vehicles?
I think you could take out property that is a vehicle, so just take out, go with Randy's redundant, or take out.
Okay, you could just say desk, vehicles, and other storage devices, or desk, other storage devices, and vehicles may be provided for the convenience of Oklahoma employees, but remain sole property of Oklahoma County. Okay, and then you delete everything until you get to if an employee observes any dangerous item on Oklahoma County property, right?
I would put that under the weapons policy, but.
Okay, sure. I mean, we can. I agree with you. It's kind of thrown in there as an it doesn't really have to do with the security check. It's a different duty.
I can buy that.
And then again, we stated the employee therefore has the expectation that these things are property of Oklahoma County. So of course Oklahoma County has
There's no reasonable expectation.
There's no reasonable expectation of privacy and the property that's been provided. Let's leave it at that.
Actually, I personally voted against that. And the only reason I did is taking it out. The reason I did is because I'm always safety and always security driven all the time. I mean, I can't get rid of it. So my point was this security check, and where I went with it was, let's say we have some sort of enormous disturbance outside of the grounds here because we have some sort of case that comes through. And so so for the next 3 weeks, or however long the elected officials say, hey, everybody that comes in this building, their bags are gonna be ran through x-rays, X, Y, Z, whatever the security measure, that's the reason I took it the way I took it, in a security check. So, you know, I'm not saying that'll happen, but I mean, you know, obviously from time to time, we have, you know, trials that are, you know, they are what they are. So, you know, if you've got, you know, co-conspirators, unindicted co-conspirators, or anything like that coming through, I mean, we want those people checked. We want them checked. And even on the employee side, employees have the emotions too. So, I mean, that's where I went with that. That's
Right.
my explanation of it.
And I completely understand, but this would be more aptly named witch hunt to me.
Oh, this, 100%.
How about access to county property? 2.3 of it.
Access to county property.
Alright.
We're trying to go back and see if there's another place.
But if I got, you know, I come through the security thing with my badge, and somebody says, Mark's PO'd and he's got a gun and he's fat that he carries in there, you've got a way to deal with that. There's a way to deal with that right now.
That's an individual circumstance, though.
Yeah. And that falls under the sheriff's security rules for security for these buildings.
You know, somebody in the office, Mark's coming in here, he's mad at the chickens, and he's got, you know, just under that, you guys would have the right to,
Right.
right and responsibility to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said. Mine was more of a global, when I saw security checks, mine was more of a global thought that, you know, during certain times, everybody needs to be at least screened.
Because we, unfortunately, now, we didn't. Maybe not specifically in this county.
Could also name it county property provided for employee use. Ooh, I like that.
I do too. There we go. Very good.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, do we have a motion on section 2.30?
I don't know. Here is what, here, okay, I move the following amendment.
Okay.
Okay. Delete the language security checks and rename county property provided for employee use. Rewrite the first sentence so that it reads that, comma, other storage devices and vehicles, that's new language.
County vehicles. Or vehicles for
Well, this is,
personal vehicles.
the title of this takes care of it, county property.
Suggest other storage devices and vehicles may be provided for the convenience of employees.
Okay.
Comma, but remain the sole property of Oklahoma County, period. Okay. Delete everything. If, and this is not part of the motion, I'm just taking that to the side, if we're going to put this see something, say something into that language into a different provision, then my motion will be to delete everything to the end of the paragraph. If not, then I would rewrite the last two sentences to read as follows: if an employee observes any dangerous item, blah, 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 violations of this policy may result in discipline up to and including termination. If we include the language here, it's out of place because we're saying county property, so I've convinced myself to delete everything to the end.
Does there need to be any statement in this policy that there is no reasonable expectation of privacy?
Counsel, what say you?
You know, if the goal is to put these folks on notice that somebody can go into their desk or property, I had to rework as well for yours, where your first sentence, but then I said these items may be inspected at any time with or without notice, whether or not they are locked, because they're county property, they're county items. That puts somebody on notice. It's simple. It's not getting into details on purses, but we're not talking about the purses or personal containers anymore. We're just saying, look, these are provided for your convenience, but they can be inspected at any time, whether they're locked or not.
But if I've got a personal container,
Right, that's
at
not
my
included in
desk,
here,
you're
right.
not able to say, okay, Mark, let's look in your lunch sack that's in your desk.
That, it would not be included, all of that is out there. It's just saying the desk, what you said, the vehicle, we might want to even include computer. I don't know, I know we have a computer section, but, and storage devices may be provided for the city's employees that remain the sole property of Oklahoma County. And then these items may be inspected at any time with or without notice whether or not they are locked. And we're talking about only those items. So that would not give the elected official or representative the right to come through your purse. If they wanted to see your purse and you said no, and they thought you were carrying something in there that was stolen property, then they have the right to pick up the phone, call the county sheriff, and
then it has to rise to the probable cause.
and it has to rise to the public, right, and we avoid all of these concerns that have been raised.
Okay. And I like that because, again, I think that then goes more to what the overall purpose is of the personnel policy, which is to provide guidelines and then to provide employees notice of the guidelines in order to set expectation of what the employee conduct should be. What is expected of the employee.
Right.
Can someone put that all together now?
All together now. So I move to amend section 2.30 to be entitled County Property Provided for Employee Use to read, desk, other storage devices and vehicles may be provided for the convenience of employees, but remain the sole property of Oklahoma County, period. And then insert language as follows. Council?
These items can be inspected at any time with or without prior notice and whether or not they are locked.
Period.
Period.
That's my motion. And delete the remainder of the paragraph.
Question. The last two sentences, can we move those to the prior section 2.29 at the bottom of that section? Do we need to act on that separately?
Let's do that as a separate.
Okay.
I mean,
okay. We have
legal subject rule again. I just can't get over these things.
Okay, I can live with that. Thanks for working through this, Bill.
All right. You made a motion?
I did.
All right. Do we have a second? All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Go team. May I present a second motion?
You may.
Okay. I move to insert the following language at the end of section 2.29. If an employee observes any dangerous item on Oklahoma County property, the employee is under duty to report such item to their elected official, or representative, period. You really don't need the comma there, but we like Oxford commas. Violations of this policy may result in discipline up to and including termination, period.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Thank you.
This is fun.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate that.
Good catch, Joe. All right. Page 57. This is under section 4.14, workers' compensation leave of absence. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down that states an injured worker must notify their supervisor if they accept or continue other employment. I'd like to strike their supervisor and add the word the health and safety department.
Question,
yes.
Clarification. We've been using Oklahoma County Health and Safety Office.
Yes, that would be it. Because we have to work with our third-party administrator on those issues regarding possibly temporary total disability.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The last one that I have is on page 73. section 6.1, and it's eligible employee. And I think there's a word missing. For the purpose of health care benefits, the term eligible employee shall mean any full-time worker, any full-time employee of Oklahoma County. And I think where there should be an or and, there's a part-time worker who is regularly scheduled to work an average of 30 hours per week. There's a comma there, and I think we need an or an and.
So delete the comma and put or?
Yes. I'll make that a motion. I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Second. Oh, okay.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Are there any other changes other than what has, going back to section 3 in a minute, any other changes that any of you feel like we need to make or edit, or other corrections that need to be made under section or under item number 4?
This is a quick question for John. It rises out of the number of appeals that the budget board hears regarded. Does it state in here when we're talking about medical benefits that an employee can appeal to the budget board, or is that strictly in the plan document?
Plan document. It says this is just a summary. Please refer to the actual plan document for details. So it's just a kind of summary of important. We could add.
Would you guys be objectionable to that?
The appeal language is pages now, so we'd have to add pages in because the content of the appeal guidelines, since they're under federal guidelines now, are like it's 4 or 5 pages long.
Just not. We could just put in a note.
No, because you have to put it in the full language if we touch on it.
Okay. I'll ask the question, because we handled a number of changes under item 4, do we need to go back and make a motion to accept all those changes, or are we covered under each individual change?
I do have, there was a motion for each change.
Okay, so we don't need to take any further action on 4, okay.
Okay, I have some additional, I may not have spoken up soon enough.
Okay.
Some additional amendments.
Okay.
That is kind of having an opportunity to discuss with Dan and John before.
Is this under the DA recommended changes that were in the yellow highlighted areas?
Well, yes, it is.
Well, then we'll handle that under number 3.
Well, then, thank you.
You're welcome.
Point well taken.
All right. Let's go back to item number 3, discussion and possible action to approve the suggested changes made by the Oklahoma County District Attorney's Office to the current draft of the Oklahoma County Handbook. Lisa, you want to come up to the table and start us out?
We're going to get to 3.9?
That would actually start with 3. I've got a mark.
Page 10, it looks like.
Yeah, we'll start with page 10 on the drug testing policy.
Okay. Okay, so this is the amendment that you and I had discussed.
Yeah.
Just to, it looks like our drug policy was, the way it was worded, if you want to take people for literal constructionists, it only said alcohol and illegal drug use. It doesn't really cover the situation if we have an employee who is maybe abusing prescription drugs or using lawful prescription drugs in an illegal manner. So what we did is we just took some verbiage out to make it wide open with regard to that, to include the unlawful use or abuse of prescription drugs. That is not to punish individuals for having used their prescription medication as prescribed, but if you have a problem, which we've had a few in the county where we've had some individuals who were abusing their own prescription drugs and wouldn't have been able to take action otherwise.
Okay. Any discussion on purpose, which is part of section 2.7, drug-free workplace policy?
We're going to take each one separately.
Or are we going to do them all as one?
I would
Do it all
prefer
at once.
individually.
I would
So
too.
I move to accept these changes.
Wait,
Go ahead.
it's on the notice. Define unlawful use is fairly simple. What's abuse? I'm abusing my own prescription medication.
If you're abusing your own prescription medication, for instance, if you're prescribed to take Percocet and the doctor says don't take more than 4 a day and you're taking 6 a day or 7 a day, and you would have the effects of being overly medicated, and it would have to be based upon, all of this is based upon, once we get in further into the drug policy, that abuse of prescription or drugs is defined as over medicating, using it in a method not prescribed. Once again, this is not intended to punish individuals who are using their prescription medication the way they're supposed to. But we have had times where there have been individuals who have been abusing their prescription medication or using somebody else's prescription medication.
I understand that. My concern with all of this is that in an attempt to try to nail down a problem, you inadvertently create a deal. And here's why I'm going with this. I had knee surgery and I'm told I can take 3 hydrocodone a day. My knee hurts like hell. So I take 4, 5 one day, 5 the next. I drive to work. I don't drive to work. I ride with Cody, and somebody says Joe's under the influence, and I've taken 5. Is that unlawful?
I would think that you would say, I think that when you're doing that, you're looking for the individuals who have, we're not talking about somebody who is getting through a knee surgery right then and there. You're looking at individuals who have got prolonged prescription abuse problems. But, you know, if somebody wanted to report you on that, and, I mean, obviously they could, but they could report you anyway if they thought you were just drunk. If you were overprescribed on medication, they may not know why you're overprescribed. They may just think that you're on an illegal drug or drunk at work if you're acting that way.
Did you have a follow-up?
No, go ahead. I'm thinking on it.
I apologize, I had to step out to get my drug of choice, which is caffeine. How do you test job applicants and employees for abuse of prescription medication? You may have already covered that.
Well, if you, like an applicant, they go take a pre-employment drug test.
Right.
They're either going to come back negative because they're instant tests.
Right.
They're going to either come back negative right then,
Right.
or they're going to be a non-negative.
Okay.
And if it's a non-negative, we do split samples. So the split sample is sent off to a separate lab
Okay.
and tested, and they do a spectrometer test. That's easy for me to say. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they look at what drugs are actually in there and in what quantities they're in there.
So
they can tell according to what's in there at what level you've been taking it.
So they come back with a high level of a prescription narcotic.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Then it comes back to the MRO, medical review officer,
Okay.
who will see the results. They will call you, and they will go over what the results are with you. Do you have a prescription for this narcotic painkiller?
I do, because of my knee surgery.
And what is the dosage that you're supposed to be taking? And if it's over that dosage, then it could be that it's a positive and not a negative. If you're within that guideline, it will be a negative. But if you're over that guideline, it could be result in a positive test.
How accurate are those? Sorry.
Extremely.
Different people process medications differently.
But
They have a range, though. They may have a medical range for that.
But spectrometer testing is very accurate as to the levels that are there.
And I think our policy also has, if you get a negative or a false positive test, you can provide medical documentation from your doctor. For instance, say Joe was going through like the pain he described, and the doctor's on the prescription, it says take 3 a day, and he's like, doctor, I cannot make it through the day without taking more, and the doctor says, that's fine, take up to 5 a day, it's okay, you get that on the, and then we go and we test, and we go, oh, you're over the thing. Well, if the doctor, if he gets that negative test in the policy, we can say, look, you've tested positive. He can provide medical documentation from his doctor for that prescription as to why that should not be considered a positive test. But that's further down in the policy.
Would it be the position of the district attorney's office sorry, I was looking at lawful, I'm sorry, the district attorney's office. Unlawful use does not include off-label use?
I think unlawful use, and with regard to this terminology, and of course we have a definition section, we can define it if you would prefer, but unlawful use would be, for instance, I think the individual who is on prescription medication but is not actually prescribed with prescription medication. In other words, I've got a hydrocodone addiction, but I'm not prescribed with hydrocodone. I just go and buy it on the street from anybody I can, or
Sure.
get it from anybody I can.
Okay.
So or I'm borrowing from mom and dad.
But wouldn't that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it made me think, wouldn't that scenario be covered as an illegal drug?
It's not an illegal drug because of how we had it defined, Joe. Because when we had defined legal drugs in this policy further down, it defined it using the criminal code for illegal narcotics, and it would not cover your prescription medication.
No, I think when she talks about illegal drugs, like for example, there's no possible medical reason to take salvia, for example.
Cocaine,
right?
heroin.
There's no medical reason for it. But a barbiturate or an opiate or something like that, there is a clear medical reason for it. So no, it's not an illegal drug, but it falls under a scheduled drug. I think that's the difference in the
Do we
language
need
there.
to recess the meeting?
We can come back. There's a lot of stuff to go through.
Yeah, there's still a lot of things that we need to talk about, and I would prefer to have.
I can leave it. I have to go to the Bar Association. Gotta go talk to a bunch of lawyers.
Do you want to make a motion?
Come back tomorrow?
So, what time is VP? 1 to 4.
All right, guys.
We come back at 9 tomorrow.
I don't need to be there.
10? Can we come back at 10 tomorrow?
I don't think.
For this afternoon, yeah.
I have a 1 o'clock with your boss this afternoon.
Are we okay for 10 tomorrow? Anybody have issues in that? Okay, look.
You mean immediately after BS?
As long as we're out by 12:30, 12:45.
Well, if we need to, then we'll come back
Again.
to meet your schedule.
To be thorough, this is going to take some time.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we...
I don't want to rush it, we just have the budget process.
Yeah.
It's going to be this week.
I'd move that we recess this meeting until immediately following 9:30 tomorrow morning, following the BOCC and Public Building Authority meeting.
Just say 9:30.
That's what I said.
No.
We'll leave out the other part.
All right, 9:30. I move that we recess until 9:30 on Wednesday morning, adjourning again in this room. There's a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. It was properly posted on March 20th, and our prayer and pledge will be led by Commissioner Vaughn.
Please stand and join me in the prayer and pledge. Father, we come before you this morning, and we thank you for your grace and your mercy. Thank you for all the blessings we enjoy in this life and for the opportunity to be here this morning. Please guide our thoughts and our direction. Father, we ask that you will continue to guide us in our steps throughout our lives. Help us to walk in the way that you would have us to walk, and continue to watch over us. Thank you for the blessing of your Son, Jesus, and we pray that you will help us to constantly remember the teachings that he came to this earth and left with us. Be with our employees while they are at work today. Keep them safe and healthy. Be with their families as well. Father, be with our deliberations this morning. We ask this blessing in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of March 15th?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. 5 through 15 are the consent docket items.
Move the consent docket subject to individual consideration.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Our awards, Ms. Gaston.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
This award is bid number 11704847 for Western Avenue paving project. Invitations to bid were sent and 4 bids are received. And based upon final evaluation and input from the end users, I'm recommending award to the low bid provided by Atlas Paving Company.
Okay.
Move the item.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
District 3 has a number of items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Items 17 through 24 are our mutual consent agreements between District 3 and item 17 is the Town of Arcadia. 18 is the Deer Creek Independent School District. 19 is the City of Edmond regarding certain streets. Item 20 is the City of Edmond regarding mowing of Section 9 roads. 21 is with the Edmond Independent School District. 22 is to assist Logan County on the maintenance of Waterloo Road, which is our borderline road. 23 is with the City of Nichols Hills, and 24 is with the Putnam City Independent School District. I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of those, or if failing to have any, I'll move items 17 through 24.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. 25 and 26 come from the clerk's office. 25 is a master service agreement with Electra Digital Studios Incorporated with assistance services related to disseminating data and information to the public via the Internet. This just a renewal, or is this? Sure.
Yeah, come up and tell us about it. Would, David?
Thank you. This is it is a renewal of some sorts in that the Electra Digital Company has worked for the County Clerk's Office for the past several years. This will be a new project which will be introducing, as we spoke of many times, about accessing all of the files, taxpayer files on voice command. And so this is the actual work of making all of those visible to the people that request them, and this is actually taking the steps to go ahead and finish up the website and get it up and running, and so that's what this is concerning.
Okay.
Any questions?
I don't see any.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
26 is to receive the comprehensive annual financial report, otherwise known as the CAFR.
Move the item.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Emergency management. David, do you want to speak to this?
This is a somewhat routine request to approve a new volunteer for our citizen volunteer group. Mr. Cravens actually, as we've been able to do with the most recent folks that have come to join us, brings a great deal of expertise. He's actually a retired emergency manager from McLean County. So we're looking forward to his skill sets and being able to assist us.
Very good.
Move the item.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, David. Engineering, item 28. Stacy?
Yeah, this is a upgrade to a railroad crossing and in the Luther area. It's in District 1. It's a state program where they've selected several crossings around the state to upgrade. We had 2 in our jurisdiction, and this is the second.
Move the item.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 29. Mr. Scuda, do you care to speak? There you are.
This is our annual agreement with Oklahoma City.
Okay. All in favor, say, or do you have any questions?
I just motioned him to the microphone.
Yeah, I can.
We can't record him
Oh, okay.
back there.
I was trying to stay off the record.
No,
No, this is just our annual agreement with Oklahoma City for housing municipal inmates.
Okay. Move the item.
Is it at the new rate that?
It's at an agreed upon rate between us and the city.
Oh, it's a negotiated rate?
Yes, sir.
Is it?
Wow.
Is it? What is the rate? I'm
Yeah.
sorry to look at it.
Hold on 1 second, I can tell you. I've been doing a lot of numbers lately, so I want to tell you the right one.
Sure you have. Well, I know that the court recently reset that amount at $34, and I'm just curious as to what you all would agree to.
The rate we agreed to with Oklahoma City for the services we provide for them is $42.88 per prisoner per day.
Yeah.
Very good.
Right there under Section 8.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And item 30 are our claims.
Move the claims.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No change to the blanket.
Move the blanket.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any citizens to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Don Miller. I live on 8613 North Triple X. In that 1 mile, we have 11 families that are old people. There's 14 families that live on that mall, and all of them are pretty much old. We, just south of us, there's a school. Just south of that is a nursing home. Just south of that is a closed road. The ambulance used to have to go 3 miles to get to us. Now they got to go 7 on account of the roads closed. And I'm wanting to ask when and if the road is ever going to get opened back up, because tomorrow we're burying one of our people on that 1 mile. And there's always an ambulance coming out there for somebody, and they're having to go 7 miles. Whenever they had a straight shot, the ambulance is half a mile east on 23rd. All they had to do is come back to Triple X and go straight north. Had no curves, stop signs or anything. And myself, I'm a high risk for strokes. I've been in the hospital twice to deal with problems that relate to that. My neighbor just south of me is in her almost 90, and the person just south of her has high blood, is diabetic, and most of us I've lived there over 50 years, and I'm one of the younger ones that's lived out there. And we're hoping that we can get that road opened back up, because time, especially like me, if I have a stroke, time is critical for the ambulance to get there. They got several turns they have to make right now. They have to slow down for them. There's stop signs they have to slow down for to get to us, which slows them down. Triple X is the only road out in that area that's a straight shot from 23rd clear to Britton Road. There's no stop signs, no yield signs, no nothing. They have a straight shot. And they can be to us, if that road is open, within a whole lot quicker than they can any other way. There's an ambulance at Choctaw, but they have the same problem. Plus they have a residential area they got to go through to get to us. And we really need that. Like I said, there's a school out there too, and a nursing home, and that road being open is real critical to all of us, especially us old people. So I'm just asking that if there's any way we could get that road opened back up. Are you the commissioner out there on that road?
I am, yeah. Of course, you're referring to the road for the other commissioner's benefit that was endangered by the Canadian River back in the floods that consumed the house that fell in the river, and we were working with the Army Corps of Engineers, and half of that road belongs to the city of Choctaw. That's part of what makes it complicated.
The west half belongs to Choctaw. The east half is Hera. I've been monitoring that road for the past year and a half. The river has not moved at all. It's 20-some feet from the road right now, and has been that way for quite a long while. And I'm just, I know that the Corps of Engineers went over on Luther Road and put almost a half a mile of riprap to keep a farmer's land from going away. Here we got, the person lost their home there on account of nobody could do anything. And, but that's all past history. My concern is the people that's living north of it. The ambulance getting to us when they, because the time it takes them to go around out of the way, somebody could die.
Sure. Well, if you would sign in with our clerk here, because we're supposed to have your sign in for speaking to the meeting, and then I'll visit with you afterwards with the county engineer. We're limited with what we can say in response to you in the meeting since it's not on the agenda.
I'm 73 years old, and whenever I was old enough to touch the pedals, my dad, he worked for District 1 in Lincoln County, and he taught me how to drive a bulldozer. I know how to drive about any kind of equipment. I've worked around dirt my whole life. I know what can be done out there and what can't. So, I mean, not legally, but what can be done to fix it.
You just hit on the key point. When you're dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers, it's a very legal process.
And I don't blame you for what's happened out there. I blame them because they could have stopped all this. And I've heard a jillion different stories about why that road's closed, and bottom line is closed, and I don't care about the stories. I just want to try to get it opened back up for people's safety.
Sure. I appreciate your time coming down here, and we'll be happy to visit with you after the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other citizens to be heard? If not, Commissioner comments, District 1.
How about Russell Westbrook? The only team in town. I just feel so badly for him because he's working so hard with little to no help sometimes. And so I have to give him kudos also for opening up reading centers for children throughout some elementary schools, and that makes me feel so good. Our children they just have to read, and whenever I go to those elementary schools, I try to hook them. I tell them if they can't read, they won't be able to count their money when they get grown. So that seems to help a little bit. But I really do appreciate him. And thank you, sir. That's all.
Okay. District 3?
I'll endorse Will's comments in the past.
Okay. Any new business? If not, Amber, can you open our bids?
We just have one bid this morning, CW 17039-2 for truck and cargo van rental for the election board. One bid was received from Cap's Van and Car Rental.
Nobody wants our business, huh? Hurry up.
I'll move second that they be tabulated and return to the recommendation.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just
These last two
power would just go out at random times, like
the golf last
run out of
electricity, the golfer go out and gets
They're absolutely zero threat.
And they have all these grocery stores, fake food, whatever that is.
What's that?
Where do they think off?
They're,
Propaganda.
North and I and North are really fortunate because they get to practice at all, so they get to practice at the trails, at Westwood, at Belmar, and at OC. So that's probably, yeah.
That's sweet.
The local community down there is very supportive of the golf teams.
How long do you have to get those in?
The 27th. All right, it's 9:30. Call the meeting back into order from recess of yesterday. And we were on item number 3. And we were on page 10 with some discussion on section 2.7, the drug-free workplace policy, and recommended revisions to the purpose. We were having some discussion on the wording and the unlawful use/abuse of prescription medication. So I think that's where we're starting again this morning. Counselor, we'll turn it back to you.
Well, we were just in the middle of discussing the meaning of unlawful use and abuse of prescription medication. Unlawful use and abuse can actually be defined in the definition section if we need it to be. I think the purpose of this was just to be able to cover all our bases and not just limit our drug and alcohol policy to illegal drugs that are covered by the criminal code. I'll leave it up to you all to decide whether it's something that we need.
Comments? Motion?
Move to accept.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The next section I have marked is section on page 25, section 2.19, open records procedures. Counselor?
Actually, when we were going over some of these others, it was suggested that there is a lot of information in our open records procedure that's more, I guess, geared for the public's consumption than it is for the employees' consumption of what the employees need to know about the Open Records Act, not necessarily how much to charge and that type of thing. So it has been reworked to give employees the procedure if they receive an open records request, what do they do with it? What is the procedure that the county uses? And currently, it has been, if the elected gets an open records request, they try to fulfill it, but they send it to the clerk's office, the county clerk's office, for them to be able to log and track and send out to the person and charge them if there's a charge or a fee. And that's usually how it's been done. None of that was actually outlined in the employment manual. So the suggestion changes were just to make this more of a employee user, what do I do when I get an open records request in, other than an explanation of what the Open Records Act is and how much we charge, because it was, like I said, more geared towards the public eye.
Comments?
On page 27, right there, at the top, go towards the top, the role of the court clerk.
Oh, sorry.
Should that be just revised?
County clerk.
So I just move to revise that to county clerk.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Now, let me clarify your motion. Is that to accept?
Let me restate the motion.
Okay.
I move to revise on page 7 from the role of court clerk to revise it to say role of county clerk, and then to accept the changes made by the ADA's office.
Okay. So the motion is to make the change role of county clerk instead of court clerk, and then to accept all other changes and revisions as proposed.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. The next section I have marked is on page 41. Section 3.1 under employment status definition.
Yes, this was the original larger amendment that was a problem was presented with regard to how one department in particular was calculating compensation time and overtime pay for their employees. Because they were using our definition of work week, and we didn't have certain clarification on what detention officers at the juvenile county, whether they were paid on a 28-day pay cycle versus a 40-day pay cycle. All of these changes in Section 3 are arising out of major miscommunication and problems we were having with one division on how they were calculating. So everything that has been amended has been done not to affect, it shouldn't affect you all. We have double checked with you guys, you do it perfectly right, but what they were doing is they're overpaying, they're overcompensating their detention officers, which creates a problem for us because you guys are doing it the way FLSA says, whereas they are giving their officers more comp time, and we want to equalize the playing field. And for auditing purposes, we want to make sure it's clear, crystal clear, that everybody in the county gets paid. If their job classification is this, that they get paid. So basically, under FLSA, the way you get paid and how you are classified, your job classification determines how you get paid. So in 3.1, we have indicated, just added a section that says how you will get paid and what your work week is depends on how you're classified, whether you're exempt, non-exempt regular, or non-exempt law enforcement detention. And that's the entire purpose of this. And this just basically says the elected official, department head, whenever an employee is hired or promoted, they will notify them what their classification status is. To let them know you're exempt regular, or you're non-exempt, or you're exempt detention.
Okay. Any questions on section 3.1? All right. Is there a motion on 3.1, the changes?
I actually have a question. So what, I don't know if this is a place we can discuss it, but what was the issue specifically that was happening? Was it just based on a 1 week?
Yes. They were doing some very strange things, but what they were doing, instead of a 28-day pay cycle, 171 hours, you don't accumulate overtime until you actually work over 171. They were calculating their overtime on a weekly basis. And
so 40 hours a week, you mean?
Yeah, but it would have been 40 hours a week, but what they were doing under the FLSA guidelines, a detention officer, law enforcement,
43.
is 43.
Correct.
Well, they were paying what they call the gap pay.
Which doesn't exist.
Which doesn't exist.
Right, okay.
For hours 41 through 43, they were paying hour for hour, and then overtime after hour 43,
okay,
which was creating a problem. Plus, they were also calculating days that they were taking off for annual leave as if they were worked and as earned time, and how they were calculating when they were earning compensation time. Now, a lot of people say, well, and the 480, they were applying the 480 rule with regard to comp time. But how this all came about is, I don't know how long it's been, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, they had such a staffing problem, they actually asked to do a payout of comp time. That's when this comes about. If people are not actually earning the comp time, at some point it becomes a payable wage if they are not allowed to take it. They were so short-staffed, they were having people not be able to take their comp time and going over the amount of the 480 and having to pay it out. So if you've got people that are actually earning comp time that is not at a rate that's not under the FLSA guidelines the rest of the county follows, then we've got kind of an unequalization problem with regard to equal treatment of our employees across the board.
Okay. Yeah, and I was just asking purely because I don't imagine it would change in some of the changes that we're going to be going through. If for some crazy reason we decided to go to a 7-day, I just wanted to make sure we understand that it's a 43-hour 7-day cycle,
right,
not 40, but
right,
1 for 1 on that gap, so
right,
to speak. But or even a 14-day would be 86 hours, so right, whatever the guidelines are for the FLSA for that.
Right, and just remember, even though this says we put it on there, as of 28-day pay cycle in the thing, but if the sheriff's office, the new sheriff decides he wants to go to 43 hours, we can always bring that up as an amendment change to the rules.
Yeah, and I don't foresee it changing, it's just, we're just trying to figure out how to best, calculate overtime, being paid 12 times a year.
Okay.
Which is 13 of those cycles.
I've got to leave, I just wanted to,
Okay.
3.9, that was one of the things that we were encountering, that said vacation or sick time was taken on Monday, Tuesday they worked 10 hours, but they wouldn't subtract 2 hours or whatever time they worked from their vacation.
That was also what they were doing.
So we need to include something in that 3.9.
Okay.
I'll be back.
To deal with the sicker vacation time, I think we do, but we'll come back to that.
Okay. Any other questions on 3.1? Okay. We have a motion and a second on 3.1. All those in favor of accepting those changes? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The next section, 3.2, is exempt and non-exempt classification of employees.
Okay, before this section just dealt with a classification of exempt employees, and what we had done in the past was we had identified exempt and non-exempt and just separated them out. Well, because of the FLSA rules with regard to detention staff, they do, and the compensation, it's called the Rule K, 7K exemption. There's an extra exemption for law enforcement exempt personnel that allows them to work more hours before they earn overtime. That was not in our policy. We just had exempt and non-exempt. All this policy is intended to do is outline that there are 3 different classification employees in Oklahoma County. There are exempt employees, non-exempt regular employees, and a non-exempt law enforcement and or detention officer employee. This way, whatever person who picks up this guideline and they want to know what they are and how they earn comp time and how they get paid and what pay cycle they are on, they can find where they fit. The exempt employee status, the only thing that was changed, and I think this was a change that we wanted to clarify, is that exempt individuals do not receive overtime pay compensation at the county. That's the only thing I think that was changed with regard to the exempt definition. Then, like I said, the regular non-exempt employees would be everybody else in the county. We did include some language that was requested to deal with the employees that maybe, or we could call them first responders, but the individuals that maybe work out at the yards that sometimes have to go out and do snow removal. So they have the 480 max overtime that they can accumulate, and seasonal. Also, when you guys are doing seasonal work and working longer hours during the summer. So we have made changes through this to hopefully, like I said, make it clear for our employees to know where they fall and how they get paid, their regular pay, and whether or not they're entitled to overtime, and how it's calculated.
Okay. Then we further defined law enforcement and added a new section called detention officers.
Right.
To further define that. Any questions, Brandon?
No, I think that addresses everything that I had originally.
Okay.
Not a big problem about it.
All right, is there a motion on section 3.2 and the changes that are listed?
Move to accept.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next section is 3.3 called work week.
Once again, this is just to identify the work week differences, work week for regular exempt employees and exempt and non-exempt employees, and to define the pay cycle for law enforcement as the 28-day pay period. Because that was what juvenile was hanging their hats on as to why they thought they could pay on a 40-hour overtime on a 40-hour work week.
Question?
Is there a requirement for I don't know how to really word this, and maybe to make it complicated, but is there a requirement to use the 207K or the 7K exemption, or is it just, it's my understanding that it originally was put in place for, say, these small departments that, if, detective such and such works 80 hours this week, you get to go home next week because we can afford to pay you overtime. So, I mean, is there necessarily a downside to going to just the A, 207A, that says 40 hours a week,
and there,
Monday through Friday type thing? Or?
There is no downside to that. Can an employer do more, give more than what the FLSA? You can't do less. If you do less, then you're not in compliance and you can be sued. Can you do more? Absolutely, you can do more. Where we fall into being a government agency, number one, we have to have the clarification. It has to be across the board. You can't be treating different departments differently in that classification. So could it be done? I would say absolutely in private sector, but government sector is a little bit different because this is what the law allows for. Obviously that would increase the cost for the county and the taxpayers significantly, or could significantly cause an increase. And one of the constitutional articles indicate that either, whether it's state or county, you're never ever supposed to give what's called a gift of anything to anyone, or an individual, company, or an entity. And conceivably somebody could read, a taxpayer could read the fact that if you're, if it says that K applies and you're paying them 3 extra hours of overtime that they didn't earn under the federal standards, and state standards are the exact same here. If the state had a law that passed and said this is our standards, then we would have to follow under the FLSA guidelines. It actually said you have to follow the highest standards. Well, because the state has not addressed overtime for this classification of employee, then we are stuck using the FLSA standards. So it's always recommended best practice just to do what the federal law says, because that's, but can it be done? Yeah, it could be done.
But here's why I ask, and if this is not the time, please, then I can ask later, but here's the issue we run into, because conceivably it's very difficult to schedule people for 171 hours worth of work in a 28-day cycle. Obviously, mathematically, that ends up with crazy amounts of hours per day, 12.36 hours per day, or whatever that number would be. I don't know the exact number, but it puts you in an odd number. So what we end up with, and the industry standard for law enforcement in a 28-day cycle is 168 hours. That's the number that you end up actually physically being scheduled for. So where the problem comes in is, let's say that somebody is asked to stay a couple hours over. Now they've worked 170 hours, but everybody else is scheduled 168, but at the end of the month their paycheck's identical.
Right.
So we run into a real issue there, and we don't know really how to combat that, except what I can tell you that other agencies do, and I know they're bound by arbitration, so other things, and things like that. But what other people do, and like probably where one of the other bureaus was going, or divisions was going, is that you will see nationwide that what ends up happening is you see a 1-for-1 comp time being put in there, almost to bridge this so-called gap. Because again, it's whether it's lawful or not, I don't know. And again, I understand they're under binding arbitration union, actual statutes for them, but that's the real issue we run into, is that let's say that boss asks you to stay for an 8-hour shift. Now you only get really compensated for 5 of those, so we've essentially worked you for free for 3 hours, so to speak. So that's kind of the issue we run into, and I don't know of a good workaround. So, and like I said, I'm not asking for, I just so in line with this, that's kind of where I was going, I guess.
Right. With regard to that, like I said, the key factor is there's nothing in the FLSA that would prohibit that. We can look at a constitutional statute that says, it could be, but the problem is they are actually working those hours. So whether or not it's a gift is a questionable thing. But a taxpayer can come upset. Our whole thing was, we can't have somebody, with the budget issues that are, and decreased revenues, I don't know, this is the standard, the bare minimum that we have to
Which is what we do.
which is what we have to do. But if there was ever a time for that to be addressed, could it be?
Yeah.
Yes. Like I said, the state legislature could come in and equalize this playing field too with legislation. I'm not saying that that's the best route, but according to FLSA, we are required by law to apply the highest standard that exists in this area. So if state law actually gives more than the FLSA, we've got to follow what the state statute says. So for right now, from a legal standpoint, all I can say is I put in the base standard, and that's what that is. Whether or not it's changed, that's a policy decision that would need to be taken up the chain.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, that's the exact thing that we use.
I understand.
They're really good telling officers, sorry, those hours for free.
Right, and I don't want to be on the receiving end of complaints from your guys who were working and applying the right standard, and then I have juvenile detention officers doing pretty much the same type of work, getting paid more. So.
Anyway, thanks for the change. I was just.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Is there a motion on 3.3?
Pat, I'm sorry, move to accept.
Second.
All right. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 3.4, work hours.
This was actually requested, I believe.
There's another section below that.
Yeah. This was requested to be put in because we never addressed secondary employment, and I think maybe people might have had some problems with secondary employment, like individuals who maybe were working a second job that was contradictory, or maybe created an appearance of a conflict with their primary employer, or their primary employer thought that they weren't devoting the time and attention they needed to because of the second job. All this would do is say, if you want to, you can work a second job, just get permission from your elected so they can vet it for any conflicts. The sheriff obviously doesn't want guys out there, if he's wearing a county sheriff uniform and necessarily working private security, he might want to control who and what they do with regard to that. And this before, maybe individual agencies have had their own policy, but there's been nothing in the book. I know juvenile has a policy. A lot of the language here was taken from juvenile handbook, which was also taken from DOJ's.
We do have a secondary job employment form. One thing, I don't know if this is a place for it or not, but one thing I might recommend would be to add something that says if you are working secondary employment, that at that point, especially if it's a like position, especially for somebody like us, even though it becomes law enforcement, that if you're just happening to be walking through the hall, that their work comp would cover you at that point, because obviously we had a very serious issue in case with that, where we had, unfortunately, somebody shot on a side job. That was never,
Yeah, it took a while to resolve that.
And I don't know that it still is, to be honest.
It is. Well, it was. Yeah, we went to one comp court on that, and we prevailed. The other employer
had to pay.
Bore the burden of that.
I know that we're probably an oddity, because if I have to work a live church for a side job, so if somebody walks up to me and I was just in casual conversation or something, I slip and fall. At that point, of course, their work comp covers, and I know we're probably an oddity, because if there's actual real law enforcement work taking place, that may fall back on the county. I'm not sure, but I don't know, that may be something to look at putting in there just to ensure that the county's covered, because I think what a lot of times ends up happening is if somebody's going to work for, I don't know, the local convenience store, they may not know that they're required, I think by law now, to provide work comp insurance for that person, so it doesn't fall back on the county. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, and we actually had a litigation case, which I won, that it was a 3-year litigation case of an employee who was working her second job as out at juvenile, again, as a counselor for juveniles. And she was doing it on county time using county computers and changing her
signature block on the county emails to include her second-time employment, which I don't know why she thought that would be okay, but she did that. And, you know, her thing was, well, my boss, my supervisor knew I was doing this, and nobody told me it was wrong. So, I mean, again, this was just a recommendation. Secondary employment was not addressed at all within here. And let's see. With regard to your requested amendment,
Because I don't know that might be the place for it, just, I think at least somebody somewhere needs to know that.
Then we have a separate workers' comp. We have workers' comp laws, workers' comp.
Yeah.
And we do have a work comp policy.
That's what I thought.
But I don't think it addresses secondary employment.
Seems like that would be the place to put it.
Probably so.
Yeah, but also, I was just thinking more so for the employee. I mean, some of the employees that, I mean, to be honest, some of the employees that actually need the second income are probably the ones that, you know, may not even know that they're not covered, for example. Sure. Not that it's incumbent upon us to let them know that, but it might be just a courtesy if we can slip a line in there that says.
Well, I mean, that's the purpose.
Yeah, sure.
Of the handbook. One of the purposes.
Protect yourself too, you know, not just us, but protect yourself too.
All right, any further discussion on section 3.4?
I have a few.
Okay.
Mainly kind of typographical or things like that. I don't know the best way to work through it. If you'd scroll up a little bit, Matthew, that would be great. Okay, right here, this first line where it says employees shall not use county property, equipment, time, or supplies for private gain. Those are all tangible except for time. Obviously, you know, property, equipment, supplies. Time is actually covered in the previous sentence where it says all employees are expected to devote full-time attention and effort. So, again, it's duplicative. I also think just doesn't really match that category. So I would, as part of my motion, delete the word time out of that sentence.
And also, with that, I don't know that, because like you mentioned earlier, if a law enforcement officer is wearing a county uniform, they are using county property to conduct a second employment, even though it may have been approved, and probably in some cases cars, and even though they may put their own fuel in, which is our policy.
Well, we can and say unless otherwise approved by the elected officials.
Yeah, and I don't know.
How would that vote for employees? Unless otherwise approved by an elected official, employees shall not use county property, equipment, time, or supplies for private gain.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, and I'm sure everybody here probably has some sort of volunteer or something or other where maybe they wear county equipment property. I don't know, you know. So I just don't want it to.
All right, so I would accept that as a friendly amendment, unless otherwise approved by.
Right, and then that will give your elected the ability to, like I said, this is to vet for the conflict. It'll make sure that the employer is aware of what the employees are doing, when they're doing it, and why, so that they don't get surprised when somebody says, "Hey, I saw your employee."
Yeah, we don't want our people working in places for a reason. Yeah.
This gives the ability to elected officials say, "Employee, no, you can't have a second job."
Right. It does, but the reason why it does, if it's a conflict.
So it has to be.
It's preventing.
Is there any vetting process that someone can go through?
Well,
here,
if you go to, can you scroll down real quick to the secondary employment to see. This is to be able to do so as long as the type of work does not conflict, compromise, or interfere with the ability to perform his or her job duties. So you have to have a conflict. It has to conflict, compromise, or interfere either by hours, subject matter. If it creates a conflict of interest, I'll give you an example. We had a juvenile employee who was in probation, who was the supervisor of probation, who was doing outside counseling services to at-risk youth. and her job was to recommend counseling services for Allison's risk use. Clearly a conflict of interest, okay? But if the employer waived it, you know, that's another thing too. The employer can waive, but this gives the employer the ability to stop those conflicts, to be able to look at the conflict before the job is taken, before the person, you know, gets hired and starts relying on that. And so maybe that's not the job that they take. Maybe they go get a job doing something else. This is not intended to keep somebody from going and waiting tables on the weekends or something, you know.
Let me did that answer your question about conflict?
Somewhat.
Okay.
It's just,
as long as the type and kind of secondary employment does not conflict, compromise, or interfere.
Yeah, I mean, the verbiage is in there. What if an employee feels aggrieved by a decision made that doesn't follow those guidelines? What means of dispute do they have to say, oh, you know, I work at Lowe's on the weekend, well, elected officials said I can't do that.
Well, if they're at-will employees, I mean,
I'm just asking the question because right now we probably have a lot of employees that work second jobs.
Well, I mean,
some part-time stuff maybe wouldn't conflict.
I'm trying to think of what you're talking about. I mean, what kind of review board or policy could be had, because each elected is going to want to do their own thing.
I'm thinking there's no policy in place now, and then we put this policy in place, and somebody arbitrarily maybe says, no, I don't like that, or...
What happens if somebody works in a second job, they're stacking groceries at Chris?
Yeah.
And I didn't tell my boss that I'm embarrassed to say I got to work a second.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What's the punitive nature of it?
Well, it says the violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action, and up to and including termination. So once again, it's open. If the boss finds out you're working a second job and you didn't ask for permission, you know, they might just say, okay, just fill out a form so I can
terminate you.
They could terminate you, but it also says they don't have to.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is I understand everybody's concern that we might have electeds within the county that may abuse some of these things, and that it could be said for every single policy that we pass. We expect people in good faith to follow the policy, to be reasonable individuals that are and employers. And if somebody is aggrieved by this and they want to turn around and file a tort claim or a lawsuit or something of a legal nature, then that comes to me, and I'm more than happy to defend the policies.
If I worked for the state of Oklahoma, would I have to come? Do they have
a lot of the agencies do.
But it's when you say a lot, it's not. They have their own personnel. I mean, they have their own handbook, or what?
Yeah, a lot of them do. I can't speak for everybody in the state of Oklahoma. For the 3 state agencies that I have worked for, other than this one, yes, we all had. In fact, I was prohibited from having any kind of outside employment because of my title and job position. They were like, no, Lisa, we don't want you going and working even, I mean, my husband owned a liquor store. You know, I couldn't even go in there in my family's business and run the cash register without violating the Attorney General's policy, because I was an Assistant Attorney General. They don't want you working. So when I say each agency has their preferences, and then you go to other agencies, State Department of Ed, anybody could work pretty much anything as long as it didn't conflict with what their job duties were. For instance, a vendor can't hire an assistant state superintendent that awards the contract. That would be a conflict, but everybody else would be fine. That's the whole purpose of these, is to make sure you don't have that stuff going on, because that has happened and agencies have been popped for that, and so that's why these secondary employment clauses have come into play, and it's to protect your elected. It's not meant to be punitive to the employees, but it's to protect the elected, so that somebody doesn't come to your boss and say, you know, your employee's over here working this other job, and you know who got him that job is that vendor of that $1 million road project down the street, that contract that was just awarded, and now your guy's working for him on the side. Okay, that creates a conflict of interest. You'd obviously want to vet.
You had a comment?
Well, just a question. This is a new policy, so would we need, if this was adopted, would each department then need to go to all of their employees and say, do you have secondary employment? If so, submit that information so we can approve it. And then the nature of the county is most all of us work for an elected official, so then whenever the elected official changes, then does that new elected official come in and have to reapprove all of the secondary jobs for all of the employees that are under them?
You know, we can obviously, that's a kind of a policy question more than a legal question. I mean, obviously, I think it's good to
and this is policy.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying.
Right.
If we have this policy, then it seems to me like that.
You can address it however you want to with regard to the implementation process of the new policy. This is an implementation process for a new policy. Your electeds can say, okay, starting today, anybody who goes out and gets a secondary job from this day forward has to turn in a sheet, or you can go in and say, okay, I want to know how many of my employees are working secondary policy and so on.
It's a policy. I think I heard Mr. Graw mention potentially some language change to the effect of unless granted permission by your elected official, something to that effect. Well, if we have this new policy, and if that elected official did not have all of their employees notify them and get permission for that second job, then they are automatically in violation of this policy because they have not gotten permission from their elected official.
It's just like legislation. On the front page of this policy manual, it has date effective when it's approved by the BOCC. If an individual has a second job already before this policy is adopted, how are they going to be in violation of something that was passed? And pay records are going to be easy to prove. I've been working a second job for 6 months, 2 years.
Right, but if you continue to work it after the new policy, then you have that second job.
Yeah, but the thing is, the violation of this policy may result in termination or disciplinary action. It doesn't necessarily.
What is the primary purpose that we're trying to accomplish here? Is it to let someone know that their primary job is with the county, and that if we call them, they need to be available, and saying a second job is not an excuse? You need, for instance, our road crews, right? Or is it we're looking to hang them for X, Y, and Z?
None of this is that. None of that is that.
Yes, we talked yesterday. None of this is, but oftentimes it does.
Well, that could be said for every law or policy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Only
that's why you vet these potential issues.
Yeah.
I would propose something like this to rewrite this. Something along the lines of, and you guys help me flesh it out. Upon acceptance of employment with Oklahoma County, all employees understand and accept that their employment with Oklahoma County is their primary employer. As such, and then that language there, any employee with secondary job
doesn't conflict, compromise, or interfere.
Yes.
And leave it there.
Yes. And then you can leave the violation of this policy in part. But rather than having it secondary, I mean, I think the point of this is, hey, if you work here, we're your primary employer. And we don't care if you have a second job as long as it doesn't interfere, however, with this job. So
you're proposing to take out having to fill out a form and be approved, right?
Yeah, I'm letting them know. I mean, we don't mention primary employer until the middle of the paragraph. I think the purpose of this is, hey, Oklahoma County is your primary employer. As such,
right. The paragraph above, can you just scroll down? The paragraph above for work hours, so it's kind of added there. We can take that out, we can mesh this however you want to make it workable. The important point for this is that, you know, we at least let people know ahead of time, look, you need to make sure that this is your primary concern. It's your primary job, so it needs to be your primary concern.
If it is.
Well, and that's why I said full-time, because we have part-time employees. And the other thing, even with that, is the example I gave of, you know, we've got, if I haven't given Cody notice that I need him to work Saturday, I shouldn't call him up Saturday morning and expect that under this policy he's going to show up. I, as the employer, have a duty to give him reasonable notice. And so...
Unless it's an emergency situation.
Yes, but even at times, I bet if you've got an officer whose wife is giving birth and it's an emergency, you're probably not going to call and expect that they're coming in, right? You see what I'm trying to protect? I'm trying to make it clear that maybe I'm not doing a good job.
No, but if the county is the primary employer, then the county comes first. If they're a full-time employee. Now, the thing is, let's say the county is your second job, right? You work part-time for the county, and so, I mean, again, I don't even think the secondary employment provision is really going to apply if the county's not your primary employment. It could, but again, the purpose, in my mind, for this section is to provide kind of an umbrella, because right now we have individual departments and offices that have these different policies. So we just want to not necessarily dictate how every elected official and department and office does this, but provide an umbrella so that there is some expectation. And then, because again, in the commissioner's offices, I doubt they're really going to need a secondary employment form, because they're smaller offices and things like that. And the sheriff's office would hundreds of employees. I can see why you would want a form that's submitted in will you be wearing your uniform? Not something that's a concern to the commissioner's office. So that being said, I think that is already contemplated because it says their primary employment with the county. But we've kind of gotten off track from where I was heading with my amendments. Okay. So I don't know if we want to tackle those. I mean, again, this has all been good, worthwhile discussion, things that we need to address, but maybe some of my amendments will kind of address those real quick. So I'm great with if you'll scroll up, please. Okay. So inserting in front of the word employees, unless otherwise approved by their elected county official, comma, and then continue, employees shall not use county property, equipment, delete time, or supplies for private gain. That's number one.
Second.
Okay. Do we want to take each change individually? I'm fine with that.
Can I make a suggestion that you guys address? If you scroll up just a little bit where it says all employees, you want it to say all full-time employees, just to be more clear? Since you said, you think it's okay?
Because all employees are expected to devote full-time during their work hours.
Right.
Can you repeat that? Unless otherwise approved by their county officer
or elected official.
What was going to be deleted? Time and private gain?
Just time.
Just time, okay.
The reason for that amendment was because, like for example, we're kind of an oddity because the sheriff's office, most every side job includes wearing a uniform. That's county property.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe even your sidearm.
Right, or
your vehicle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which, we get it. Again, it's umbrella.
Yep.
So, move. We have a second.
All right. Any questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. The second thing is on the third line, volunteer work, secondary employment, school, or other. That should be personal, not personnel.
Oh, yeah? Sorry about that.
It happens all the time. let me move this with an additional one, and that is to delete conducted on personal time and. So it would read, are expected to be kept separate from the county employees' work hours. And here's the reason I say that. Again, a lot of us are involved in volunteer, community type activity. If somebody takes a call on their cell phone at their desk because they're raising money for Habitat for Humanity or volunteering for that or something like that, I just can't imagine that would be a violation and that they would have to say, okay, I've got to clock out and take this 3-minute phone call. I think as long as we keep that line of separation between county work and community work, then we've achieved our goal. So those would be on this motion to change personnel to personal, and then to just delete conducted on personal time and.
Second. All right. Motion and second on that part of that section. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And finally, jumping down to the secondary employment time, I have the last 2 sentences deleted. I'm not sure the last one needs to be violation of this policy may result, disciplinary action. That's probably fine. But this is a no tolerance policy the way it's written, because it says under no circumstances can an employee perform his or her during the regular county business hours. So again, it's an absolute bright line rule, and I'll give you a personal example. I still have clients that I represent, and I may have to go make a court appearance that'll take 30 minutes. That's during my work day, okay? And so I go over to the courthouse and I'm there for 30 minutes and I come back. Now, this says under no circumstances can I do that between the hours of 8 and 5. It just doesn't make any sense. So I propose deleting that line, because again, I think we already covered that in the previous section about time and attention, keeping things separate, and so that's my motion.
Second. Okay. Any questions, comments? All right, motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Now, do we need to address the primary employment issue?
Just rereading it now.
So what was this with the primary employment?
Can you do strike through on
I think you made a
that?
good point.
It's buried in the.
We were working off the.
Original.
It's buried in the paragraph that.
I don't want anybody to change it.
To me, the essence of this is, hey, Oklahoma County is your primary employer. As such, we have certain expectations.
I have an idea.
Yeah, I was just saying, because we've got a heart surgeon who's a part-time deputy. I assure you, this is not his primary job.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, no, I didn't pick that up.
He started
What do you
that.
got?
Look at the second line.
Outside of their, what if we put primary in front of county employment there?
Okay, outside of their, you did that.
So we'd leave that, we just insert the word primary, then it's not buried so far down in there. And then leave the other reference to primary employment. Primary employment. Okay.
Is that a motion?
You leave that one in between there and county and the word primary on the second line.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let me kind of to make sure that we encompass this. So, like I said, we've got a position that is a part-time deputy. So, but also in his willingness and desire to give back to the community, he uses the sheriff's office, even though he's a part-time employee, as also another way to, again, wear the uniform. So he's using his secondary employment and then a secondary employment beyond that. So I don't want to further complicate it, but there's times where he goes and he does, the polar plunge, for example, or something for Special Olympics, and he goes and he wears a sheriff's uniform, and he, does flips and tricks at basketball games and does all these things in a county uniform. So that's a secondary, even though it's for free, it's a secondary employment,
I wouldn't necessarily call that a secondary employment.
Okay.
With no pay.
That's community volunteer.
That would be community, plus it could also be part of his job description as a reserve deputy to go out and represent the sheriff's office in the community. So,
He doesn't even have to do that on personal time now. I mean, he could go volunteer
as long as it
flips and tricks on county time, as long as he's doing it.
Okay.
And like I said, this is not gauged at people that are like, I think, have said that the folks that this is not their primary. We're really mostly talking about the full-time employees, secondary jobs. We kind of want to make sure that they're not out doing something the electeds aren't aware of, or at least they are aware of that they need to.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. All right. There's a motion to add the word primary in front of county employment on the second line. Second? Second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Rolling.
Do you need to address your concern about implementation dates for Cody, for when this policy gets in place and if it applies to current?
No, I'm not on the board. I was just making a comment.
I mean, I think that's up to each elected official.
Okay.
I was just trying to express some potential pitfalls.
And the effective date will be the date of the acceptance of this by the board.
I think, addressing his comment, though, I do think where I could see an issue with that is, I mean, for us, for example, I mean, nobody ever gets in trouble, with policy like this that we have in our policy until they get in trouble on that side job. So it is one of those things that, I mean, again, I'm only speaking from our experience. If you've got somebody who has a, let's say a poor use of force, or, maybe it's not even related to that, but let's say a poor use of force, and all of a sudden it goes to our investigations, says, hey, this person may or may not have been mistreated, or whatever, the job wasn't performed appropriately, and all of a sudden one of the first things they look at is, well, do you have a secondary job? Are you even approved to do it to begin with? So there's the first place they always start.
Because it determines whether they're inside or outside.
So yeah, if you've got a guy that's working at Kroger's or Costco or whatever we have here, I mean, so if you've got a guy, like he said, sacking groceries, and there's a, spent too much on Texas, but so so if you've got a guy that is sacking groceries, and all of a sudden he breaks a lady's window out and they're suing, they, I mean, who knows, I certainly see where the elected like, I think I'm going to use this policy against you by, so I certainly see how you can.
Are you recommending?
No, I was just kind of, maybe addressing it in a different way. I mean, again, just from personal experience, I know exactly how it works in our area. The only time this becomes an issue is when it becomes an issue. If you get an accolades from that same grocery store because you've been an outstanding security officer, they're not going to worry about whether or not you got a self-employment form. It's when you choke on the cashier. So.
Question. All right. For Jim to help me clarify in my mind. So this policy is adopted, and I'm working at Crest sacking groceries. It's still up to the elected official to say, everybody working in the office is going to have to notify me, sign a form, and we're going to have to keep the records that you're working at so-and-so place.
Only going forward.
That would be up to your elected official to say, yeah, I want you to sign a form.
But going forward.
Going forward.
Going forward. I'm not working anywhere now, but tomorrow I'll go to work.
Let's say, Mark, when this is approved, say you were working a part-time job, that your elected official say, Mark, I don't really feel comfortable you working with that part-time job. You need to quit that, or you need to quit your job here. I mean, that
can happen already. I mean,
there's no policy for it, though.
Yeah, but they have, that will employ. That's right. No, you're going to say you're going to work at Crest.
But you don't have to disclose right now that you worked at Crest.
Yeah.
And the thing is once again, you want to talk about inside, outside scope, even with elected officials, the way this policy is written, they would have, for him to come to you and say, you gotta quit bagging groceries, they would have to somehow articulate a conflict of interest and show that the secondary employment was interfering with your job duties. Now, obviously, I know electeds, it's going to depend. Maybe they don't want the first deputy going and bagging groceries because that makes, that's not the image that they want to portray. But they don't care if one of the secretaries or the clerks do, the secretarial staff does it. So, like I said, this is it's supposed to be blanket, wide open enough for you to determine. It doesn't even require a form. It's just permission. Hey, boss, I got the second job, that's okay?
Okay, can you help me there? Say, okay, we're not gonna, all of a sudden in our office, so we're gonna have to keep forms and da-da-da.
You don't have to if you don't want to. And it's just, if you have a lot of employees that have, like they said, we have a ton of employees at the sheriff's office, at the juvenile board, working second jobs. It's hard to keep track of all.
Prior to this, if I worked in any office in Oklahoma County, okay, prior to this, nobody, well, again, does anybody make anybody sign any forms?
No.
Sheriff's office does.
Sheriff's office
They have their own internal
Probably juvenile.
Juvenile does.
But I don't know anybody in this building that makes anybody sign a form that they've got a second job somewhere.
When we hire somebody, we tell them, your employment with the county is, we are your primary employer. As such, we expect, since you have a second job, that's fine, but recognize there may be a time when you have to forego that second job to perform your duties. We tell them that. I mean,
yeah, I think that I totally agree. I think that's absolutely should be the gist of that. Is that at some point you might have to come back. I mean, I honestly, like you said, the only real place I could even see that maybe being an issue, even coming up anytime soon, would be at the sheriff's office, just because, if somebody new comes in and says, yeah, I'm just going to nix all secondary employment altogether, which, kind of brings up an issue. I know the word at will was thrown on. Not every county employee is at will. So I don't know how that works for the ones that are just cause. But,
does that clarify, Mark?
Oh, I'm probably confused. I'm making a problem in my head.
Well, the last sentence is the violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action. That leaves it broad open. I mean, this says that to ensure there's no conflict, that they'll obtain permission or let their employer know. If the the enforcement policy obviously is up to the employer about how and when. This is there to put employees on notice of what their expectations are and where I need to know where my lines are to stay between the lines for my county employment. I don't want to go over this line. I need to stay in in my lane. Okay? This is not intended to put more policy requirements or onerous tasks on the electeds. The intent is to protect electeds, actually, from employees who may be going out there and working for a vendor, and then the elected doesn't know, and come election time, somebody puts something in the Daily Oklahoman and they learn from Channel 4, oh gee, my employer is working at this part-time job and it's the conflict of interest and now I have to deal with this. If the employer had the ability to vet that and say, here's why I don't like you, why I would not like you working for that position, and that conversation can take place, then maybe those kinds of things can be avoided.
hey, Mark, if you're not comfortable with this and you want to make a motion to take this out completely, I might be inclined to second it. And rewrite it.
I make that motion.
I would second that. We remove this with the intent to rewrite it.
Okay. today. All right, we have a motion and a second to pull section 3.4, remove all of section 3.4 with the intent to rewrite section 3.4.
How would you remember that anyway?
Was it all of it, or just the secondary employment part?
My issue's the secondary employment.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second to accept that we haven't voted on yet?
Well, what she said is, are we just talking about this part or the whole section?
Yeah.
We voted on it?
We voted on it. I asked it.
Okay, you're right.
Post.
Okay.
Vote.
Okay.
Well, I made my note, the bottom line, it says examine new language. We're not, we haven't put the stamp on it yet anyhow, right?
What's the issue here? Again,
We didn't, it can come out. It's never been there before. It was just to provide protection for the employer.
I'm concerned about, I'm trying to protect the employee.
Right.
I'm looking at it from that side.
And legal's job is, because this is the employee handbook, it's usually drafted to, like I said, give those guidance, give those bumper rails, and give employers options if they have problems.
Okay, and if I can interject, Mark, I agree with you. I think including this language actually provides that protection to the employee. Here's the reason, here's how I get there. Right now, there's nothing, there's no umbrella provided related to secondary employment. It's kind of a department by department deal, and so you could have an elected official that says no, absolutely no secondary employment if you're going to work for me.
And they could still do that with his, because I said, I want your...
I disagree.
Under the at will, they could, not under this.
But at will, they could still do it. But I mean, at will, you can...
Right, but this says...
But then you could go back.
As long as the type and kind of secondary employment does not conflict, compromise, or interfere, so it actually gives the employee more power, if you will, because then the employer or the county official has to justify.
There'd be no way to articulate.
How are they going to be able to say you having that second job at Crest interferes with your job as a guy road supervisor? That's a hard sell, and I think that the employee would be able to say, boy, that's arbitrary. Now, could they say, I don't want you being a stripper because I think that interferes with your employee. Yeah, I think that they've got a pretty good case there. So I think leaving this out actually leaves the employees more vulnerable, and that's one of the reasons why I think we need to have some section, related to secondary employment.
I think the key, must first obtain.
Well, but there's a permission section and a forgiveness section. The language that Mr. Graw inserted, unless you get permission from your elected official, you can't. So that's where you're supposed to ask permission. If you fail to ask permission, you've got a forgiveness at the last statement. Your elected official can.
What if we said
forgive you if you didn't?
Notify as opposed to obtain permission?
It's the same thing to me.
Why can't we just say Oklahoma County is your primary employer? As such, your duties
Cannot be impacted.
Yeah, I mean, we essentially say it in the paragraph above. I'm with Mark. This is not... If I have a second job as stocking groceries at Crest because I need the income, it's not...
Randy, I agree with you that now it puts a standard there, which gives more protection to the employee. But one thing that limits the employee is now they have to give notice to to their elected as to that second job, whereas right now they don't have to give that notice to get the permission.
Let's take that part out.
Bring it back on the table.
Yeah. I mean, let's just. You're good to go? Because we also, Joe, to your point, we need to provide for the secondary employer or the employee's primary employer, and the county is the secondary employer. You need to be able to show that the employee's not in violation of county policy. See what I'm saying? That yes, the county has a policy that says I can work for you and still have my job at the county, because there's going to be some secondary employers that might say, how do you have permission? Oh, my elected official says it's okay. Well, okay, so was the employee handbook? Well, they didn't say anything about it. But as long as, well, what about HR? Well, they say it's up to my elected official, but the handbook doesn't say anything about it. So I think we've got to have it in there for that purpose as well. I'm okay with taking out the line that says they have to first obtain permission.
If we kept that first sentence in under secondary employment and deleted everything else from past that.
Great, I'd second that.
I would second that.
I can live with that.
I can live with that.
So, Mr. Chairman, you move to keep the first sentence and delete everything else?
Except for the last sentence.
That violation of the policy may result in disciplinary action up to including termination.
There we go. We need to undo the other two motions and stuff we've done.
Well, did we vote on?
You withdraw your motion, Mark.
I withdraw my
Second, Don.
All right.
Now you can.
All right, then I would move that.
Your original too. So that's
Well, we've already amended the section to take out that part.
All right. I move that under the section secondary employment, that it read, it is the policy of Oklahoma County that employees who wish to work a second job outside their county employment be able to do so as long as the type and kind of secondary employment does not conflict, compromise, or interfere with the employee's ability to perform his or her job duties.
Second.
Violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action up to including.
And Daniel, just going to clarify, you're taking out the word to, right? Employment to be able, so the employment be able to do so.
The primary. Well, he just read it off.
Be able to do so.
So that to between employment and be needs to come out as well.
Yes, right there, yes.
Yeah.
That'd be my motion, that's my motion.
That's a friendly amendment.
Yes.
And also, when you just read it, I think that you forgot to include primary.
Okay.
Which we had already amended.
All right, outside their primary county employment. Okay.
Good catch, Buster. Thank you all for.
That is my motion, we have a second.
All right.
Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good.
Okay.
We have people working on it.
Scope of employment nailed down for us over there.
Section 3.7 on page 45.
I hate to move on.
Want to go back?
Yeah, move approval.
Just one second.
Well, they get, motion on the floor.
Previous question.
Point of clarification.
Was that question about vacation, sick hours, was that covered some?
We have not gotten to that yet.
Okay. I move this section.
As amended.
Okay, now hold it. There's a question before the vote, please.
Okay.
Okay. Non-exempt employees keeping time.
Timekeeping, yes.
Okay. Which are not, okay, non-exempt.
Yes.
Okay. Exempt employees keeping time. Exempt, because I'm kicking it up one. Exempt employees are the employees listed. Okay. County shall keep their records, but again, this is current language, right? Shall keep their actual hours worked to gain annual and sick leave. The actual hours required. Okay, so this gets currently under, on this munis thing. If I'm working 54 hours this week, because you work till the garage opened and you'll work till they pull that door down. I've got to log that in currently.
I'm going to defer to our payroll director.
Well, the only thing for exempt employees, the only thing that hours worked is drive how you gain your vacation accruals. So if you work a lot of extra hours, you might get your vacation accruals early for the month, but you won't go over that amount. So, there's a certain amount of workable hours in a month.
But is that the way, I'm saying right now, because if I'm coming in when that garage opens at 6 o'clock in the morning and leaving when it closes at 8 o'clock, am I supposed to put?
Right now, there's no policy for this in the handbook. This is all new policy. Exempt employees, there's nothing on timekeeping since we're in the accounting system. The change to this is that exempt employees, it just asks them to record their actual hours worked to gain.
Well, it's not underlined or anything to me. It looks like it's current language.
Well,
that was what was adopted before.
That's what this gets back to the one of those that I.
This is from the last version that you all adopted, and the changes were what came after your last adoption.
And there's no policy that says, Mark, if you work 50 hours as an exempt employee, you have to record your hours. And if you want to record your hours to gain your sick and leave accruals, you can.
But you won't accrue more than is allowed in the handbook.
That second paragraph, Mark, that one where really it is the gist, and all we're recording is the time that we're actually off. So if you're off the full 8, you're an exempt employee and you take the day off, then you're recording 8 hours annually. But if you work half of your shift, then you're putting, for the purposes of our accruals, we're deemed to have worked the full day. And that's consistent with how it's been interpreted throughout the county, and we just put it in. So in terms of your question, I think the answer is your time record would show that you work 8 hours that day, even if you work 12, because you're an exempt employee.
Okay. And again, adopted earlier in this process, we stated that the purpose, an exempt employee comes in and literally works till noon and then says, I've got to go,
golf appointment.
Or you go to the doctor's something. I mean, you wouldn't even take sick leave then.
No.
You couldn't.
Yeah, you only have to take leave in increments of 4 hours or more. So if you work half a day, you got a doctor's appointment, have to leave the rest of the day, you don't have to take any leave because you've already worked 4 hours for the day.
For an exempt employee.
Only for exempt. That's very few employees compared to the masses. Now, before, Mark, each office interpreted this and administered it in different ways.
So
now there's a uniform, because there's never a uniform policy for exempt employees at all. So now there's one, if we approve this, that's uniform to everyone.
Okay. I just want to make sure I can explain this to our people.
And I think one of the distinctions when this was passed was that this is timekeeping just for annual and sick leave accruals. Okay, I mean, this is what the requirements are for the munis system, correct?
Yeah, again, the only way that governmental payroll system works is to gain your accruals, it's based on some sort of hours inputted. We can't just, it doesn't work to just grant accruals. So we had to try to figure out a way to make it work.
So, but again, an exempt employee could record their, quote, I'm going to use this term loosely, overtime, and and justify saying I'm going to accrue additional leave time or medical time.
I have one VOCC department head, and I approve all of the VOCC department head's time, but I have one that works lots of time outside of normal work hours, including weekend hours, who records his time, whatever time it is that he works. He's only going to accrue whatever is allowed under our policy.
That's what Matt does. He goes back and he runs time work reports. If anybody worked above the hours for the period, and then he goes and adjusts the accrual down. So they don't gain 30 hours of vacation time in 1 month.
Right. So can you do it? Absolutely, you can. But it will not cause you to accrue more leave time than is allowed.
I want to be able to explain this.
Yeah. Okay. So it is half the shift, not 4 hours, right?
Right.
And the reason I asked
We went on.
we
had that discussion.
Okay.
On your guys'.
Okay. And so.
Less than half their shift.
Okay. So I'll be telling myself a little bit because our past practice for us has been if you take an hour, you put in an hour.
That's how ours has been too. So this would be a big change.
Well, I know it is what it is, but at the end of the day, how does that affect? How many dollars you spend out on, as far as, for example.
So just bank a lot more vacation.
That's my point. So when you separate employment, your annual leave bank most likely would be considerably higher than that of.
Which when you cash out at the end of retirement,
I will again say, it's not in the policy, but I will again say, according to state statutes, when you are an exempt employee, you are paid to work 40-hour work week, not a 30-hour work week.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it's up to the elected official to prevent that kind of abuse. And time record keeping is usually how you do it. This is the basement. This is the minimum requirement for sick leave accrual. Each elected can govern that, but I'm telling you right now, you will create problems with the auditor. You will create problems for yourself if you're not demanding even exempt employees. I'm an exempt employee of the state of Oklahoma.
Sure.
I take off, even if I'm here 6 hours, and I take off 2 hours to go to my kid's baseball game or to take to a dental appointment, I always take leave. Even if I work over half a day, I always take leave because the presumption, whether you're recording or not, is I'm an exempt employee, I'm paid a salary to work a 40-hour work week. So, and that's what our policy says, we have a 40-hour work week. That's for all employees, not just exempt.
I personally agree. In my mind, I can't see how in the world anybody would be okay, taxpayers included, that exempt employee A works 4 hours but marks 8 on their time card. I personally can't see. And I understand the idea is that, well, you'll possibly work 12 the next day, but I know personally a lot of exempt employees that that's not the case. You go home early one day, most likely that time's not going to be made up.
The last sentence in that section says abuse of this section may subject the exempt employee to disciplinary action.
And I understand that, but the bottom line is it may not be abuse. Maybe you do have a legitimate doctor's appointment at noon, and you go home one day. The bottom line is the taxpayers are still paying you for 40 hours, and you only work 36, and it may not be an abuse deal. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we're not going to do that because we certainly can, but it's just taboo to me to think that's even allowed by law.
Well, and the thing about it is it's FLSA standards.
I totally agree with what I'm saying.
So I mean.
Once again, this is for the annual leave, the sick leave will accrue, and it's the basement.
We don't have to balance
Each elected official.
You answered my question.
Thank you.
All right. The next section, non-exempt timekeeping.
Just one thing I want to point out on number 8, and this is kind of important too, that all employees are treated the same in time recording, because I know different departments have different rounding rules. Some say if you come in 30 seconds late, we're going to dock you 30 seconds. They actually do that. So we have representatives of all departments, especially the sheriff's office. Do you guys do in 15 minutes?
We are 15 minutes. Our rounding rules are slightly different than that. We are at 1 to 9 minutes at the sheriff's office. So essentially the way it works is that, let's say, for easy numbers, your shift starts at 8 a.m. and you clock in at 8:09, you still get credit for the full shift, but if you were to clock in at 8:10, then you would only get credit for 7 hours 45 minutes of the shift. So our rounding rules are slightly different than what's listed there. Probably an easy change, but it's always interesting to see people with time clock 5 minutes before, because they know exactly when they can clock out without getting a red box or exception. So.
Yeah, I think since we do have time entry now and for non-exempt employees, I think just consistency, just because I know some employees are docked for a minute, some are docked for 5 minutes.
We use that exact format to answer your question, though. The numbers are 2 minutes different, but we do use that exact format.
Okay. I'm good with quarter of an hour. I was keeping track of my time as tenths of an hour because that's just what I'm used to from the hours.
Yeah.
But I've since been educated that quarter of an hour is appropriate. So, do we need to have a countywide policy?
I think there needs to be consistency.
Yeah. I haven't really read through this either.
Can't that just be anything from your office?
But
I was just thinking about Lisa.
You know, one thing, I don't know if this thing is this essentially referring to, you know, just volunteer, you come in earlier, you clock in late
3 times,
or especially the early, I guess, would be the thing that I'm really.
Thank you. Yeah.
But if I came in 7 minutes, late, I'm a non-exempt employee, and I came in 8:07 every day for the last 10 months.
You get it free.
I got it free, but then my employer could say, Mark, can't you get here at 8 o'clock?
Absolutely.
He can nail me.
Oh, yeah. We're not, by doing this, you're not taking away Butch's ability to say that is unacceptable.
Because if we're going to do this, everybody's going to come to work at 8 o'clock.
This is just the timekeeping, and there's a whole section on what the work hours are and what your shift is. So this is just for timekeeping, and then you have this shift that says what your work week is, and the employer can still do their disciplinary action.
And that's the
even
key
if
word,
they're
timekeeping.
Yeah, that's
got it.
This is for timekeeping.
Thank
Is there a motion on section 3.7?
Move approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 3.8, employee attendance record keeping.
Move approval.
All right. There's a motion to approve section 3.8. Second. Second, okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? 3.9, compensatory time.
And I know now it's been added that it's actual time worked in excess of 40 hours for non-exempt employees. And we had some issues with departments counting in vacation and sick hours to calculate comp time. But 2, it's in favor of the employee to say if they work extra hours that week and say they took 8 hours of vacation time and they work a couple hours extra, do we need something in there to say, hey, you subtract that time extra that they work from their vacation time taken? Because we have employees that work took 8 hours vacation on Monday. They come in and work 10 hours on Tuesday, but there's just 8 hours, but they never get their vacation reduced, and they don't get comp time because they actually didn't work, at the end of the week over 40 hours. Help me with that. How do we address that?
I don't even get that follow-up.
Okay, so here, look,
help me, Joe.
I know.
At the yard, let's say we have an employee who takes Thursday off, so he takes 8 hours annual, but on Saturday, we're laying a mile of road, and he comes in and he works 12 hours. So the way this would work for compensation purposes is the first 8 hours would be, quote, hour for hour. And then once he hits the 40 actual work, then he would get time and a half for the other.
Okay.
And so Munis doesn't allow for that hour for hour accrual, right?
There's no hour for hour.
It's actually
there's no straight rate overtime. It's just.
But is that's a function of Munis, correct?
No, we can build a box, but the handbook doesn't allow for, unless there's a holiday or there's a county emergency and they have to come out in those situations, but not if an employee took.
Well, but I think it's handled, John. I think that,
there's no straight rate overtime.
But to me, you don't have to create a straight rate overtime because it's handled under how your time is earned, right? Your accruals. To me it seems just obvious that if I'm a non-exempt employee and I take 8 hours of vacation on Monday, and then suddenly I'm working Saturday 12 hours, that I know that I think it becomes more of a nightmare if we're trying to cancel out 8 hours of vacation here because I work 12 hours on Saturday. And so I would much rather us put some kind of tool within Munis that lets me record 8 hours. Joe got 8, and now that extra 4 he works is a time and a half. Rather than an employee, because now with Munis, an employee is responsible for putting their time. Oh, well, now I go back and I cancel out this vacation. I mean,
So people are going back and canceling that vacation.
Yeah, something similar, and then just to maybe address some of your concerns, in 3.10 under holidays, the last paragraph that was added, this is for the holidays, hour for hour time worked in addition to the 40-hour work week.
And I think
Are you looking to do something similar to that?
My concern is an employee takes 8 hours of vacation on Wednesday. They haven't worked 40 hours, Monday through Friday. They've worked 32 with 8 hours of vacation. They come in Saturday, they work 8 hours. Should they get comp time of any time? Not under this policy, they should. It says
but under federal law, you have to compensate them.
Not only for hours worked, you do.
That's what I'm saying. So if I work my 40th hour is on Saturday, you still have to compensate me for hours 33 to 40.
Yes.
Yes.
After
just
40.
Yeah, but
regular done.
But
He's
only work 40 hours.
Straight hours,
because
straight
he took
overtime.
annually, because he actually worked an extra 2 hours, that there should, if he took 8 hours of annual, that it should be reduced to 6 hours of annual for the extra 2 that he worked when he got back.
So that'll be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
You're better off.
I understand what he's saying, but is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because now what we'll have now is we're going to be paying overtime to people that haven't worked 40 hours.
I think you're significantly
Yeah, it's going to be the same situation.
I know what you're saying.
So we're going to be stuck with.
I'm not concerned about that.
Well, what we see is from other departments, not necessarily that department, but we're going to have employees that take vacation, 2 days vacation a week, and then they work. They haven't worked 40. They're just going to get time and a half.
How are they getting time and a half? They're not working it.
Or straight rate overtime in Joe's case.
Well, how are they earning that when it's?
I take Monday and Tuesday off, on annual.
Yeah.
So I work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I was at 24. I would work 24 hours that week.
But if you come in,
and I come in on Saturday and I work 8 hours. Right?
You're at 32.
So, but then in that scenario, then you would get straight rate. You get 8 hours of straight rate overtime stuck over here on a different set of.
You get 8 hours of straight rate pay.
You don't get overtime.
But you would get paid for 32 hours work and then 15 hours of vacation.
Yes.
So you would get paid an extra 8 hours on that paycheck.
Yeah.
No.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Overtime doesn't accumulate until you work over 40.
Yeah,
But it would all be paid straight rate.
Right, so that becomes my point. I mean, we've got.
Straight rate in the handbook though, except for on a holiday, if you have to come in when there's a week that had a holiday in it, you have to come in on the weekend and work, any hours below 40 that you're working extra because you have to come in on the weekend that a holiday falls on, then you get straight rate overtime. Then if the county's emergency, you come in during an emergency, the county's closed due to snow, but the road crews have to go out, they get straight rate overtime. But if I take 2 hours or 2 days of vacation, Monday and Tuesday, I come in on Saturday and work 8 hours, there's no policy in here that says, hey, I get 8 hours of straight rate overtime to take off later.
You would have to be approved from your supervisor to do that as well. And maybe your supervisor says, well.
Instead of calling it straight rate overtime, can we call it straight rate comp time?
There's no bucket.
I mean, you said that you can add a box though, right?
Yeah, but we have to add it in here, in the handbook. So
why wouldn't you, if it's in there for the holidays, why don't you just add that for annual leave as well?
So what I'm hearing is, we will say, have a section called straight rate overtime.
Straight rate comp time.
Straight rate comp time. If an employee takes vacation or leave during the week and comes in and works on a weekend, then they'll get hour for hour time to take later.
Up to 40, right? And then
up to 40. Okay, so we need to have that listed so we can create a
so that
category.
let me try to understand how this works. So an employee on Monday takes 8 hours of annual leave. They work the other 32 hours for that week. On Saturday, they come in for 8 hours. How much do they get paid if they make $10 an hour?
They get their regular salary, but then they get an extra 8 hours to take off later.
So the annual leave is then figured in, so you don't need to take that day that you work on Saturday, go back and take annual leave off for Monday?
You're penalizing me.
It's maybe being paid, so you don't accumulate comp time.
My vacation.
There's too many conversations going on.
We just need to add a policy.
So your paycheck is going to be for 40 hours.
Okay.
And then the 8 hours you work on Saturday
Goes into a bucket.
goes into a bucket.
Okay.
Straight rate overtime instead of being time and a half.
It's not overtime. It's straight rate comp.
I disagree that it's even that.
Time and a half,
It should be regular hours.
It's regular hours.
But people are having, right now,
Then don't work. Take your leave and work your, count your 40 with your leave. Nobody says you have to.
Hang on, we got too many conversations going on. I'm not hearing any of it.
It's not required by the FLSA.
what we're trying to do now is capture all the county policies that people are doing behind the scenes.
Thank you.
And
That may be the case.
And there's no way to capture the system now. There's no way to put those hours. So makes sense.
Under the FLSA standards, that would not earn any type of comp time, call it straight rate time. It would not be earned. The FLSA rules indicate you have to work to accumulate that compensatory time. You have to work in excess of 40 hours. If you take 2 days of annual leave, work 3 days, and then come in on Saturday, that Saturday time comes in, it's still under the 40 hours. It's still just regular pay. You don't get compensatory time for it, not according to the FLSA rules. So what you were doing is basically creating the same kind of exception that this whole purpose was corrected to prevent juveniles from kind of doing.
It's kind of like gap pay.
It's kind of like gap pay. And there is, with regard to, can you do it, should you do it, those are policy questions. I'm just saying, with regard to FLSA, what you are advocating is not required by the federal law.
But FLSA allows for it under holiday situations?
No, we're going above and beyond. Holidays going above and beyond. When the county's closed, it's going above and beyond.
But what I'm saying, though, is her argument against doing the straight rate comp time here would also counter the sections you have in there for holidays.
And so I think
it's not good for annual holidays.
I think for Joe's concern, real quick, for Joe's concern, this would probably rarely happen. There's one big department that happens every day, multiple hours, hundreds of hours a month. That might be more of a concern. Is where probably the reasoning behind this comes from. It's hundreds of hours versus a few hours here or there, but we just need, if it's being done, we need a policy so we can put it in the system to make a bucket so people can enter their hours.
Well, if I understand what she said correctly, I mean, if you come in and work or if you're off on annual leave for those first 2 days, that's compensable, okay? So then you come in and work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's also compensable. And then if you come in Saturday, this way she sounds, it's almost compensable again. So now this person is...
I'm saying it's not.
So what happens to that extra 8 hours?
You should reduce your vacation leave.
So that's my point. Right. So now what we're going to do, okay, so that's what I wanted to come out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cook the books. So now in 6 months from now, when an attorney says, hey, was this employee here on this day, or whatever, you're going to say, yeah, sure they were. Look, it's right here. Because we've taken annual leave out of Munis, and it appears that they were working here, and they actually weren't. Right. They may be named, and that happens all the time.
All you could do is, you could do a different leave category, leave without pay or something like that, and then have the extra hours.
But then you got to go in and figure this is going to camp on to
approval. Can you walk me through this real quick?
Okay.
This scenario.
I'll try.
On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a non-exempt employee works 8 hours every day, so 32 hours. Friday, they're on vacation. So that 32 hours, they're paid at their regular hours rate.
And they
the 8 hours that they take for vacation, they get 8 hours regular pay.
To give them their 40-hour work week, to give them a full-pay work week.
Right. Now on Saturday, they need to come in and they work an additional 8 hours. What, according to your understanding of FLSA, what happens with that 8 hours on Saturday?
FLSA does not provide for compensation, overtime compensation over that.
Now, this may be a gap in the FLSA. I'm just saying FLSA does not say you earn compensatory time until you work hour 41. Do you see what I'm saying? I understand what you're talking about, the straight time, compensation-wise.
So in your mind, then,
we're
would that 8 hours that you work on a Saturday then need to be paid out at your straight time for 8 hours?
Your hourly rate.
It would be paid at an hourly rate, and that is where I say
And it would not go into the comp time situation.
It would not go into the comp. To me,
And we
it
don't
does
get
not go
paid
into
hourly,
comp.
we get paid salary.
And that's the problem.
But we convert.
It would be converted, but this is where we say permission to work over, over the 40-hour work week comes into play, because that's the danger. I apologize because my hamster kind of fell off the wheel there for a minute, because I'm envisioning all these issues with pay and budgeting that maybe aren't being addressed, because once you put it in the policy, if it's one division doing it, once we put this in policy, then all divisions will be doing it. Kind of like why I wanted to bring juvenile on board to make it equal. We need to make sure that we're not
And they're the ones who are gonna, have huge payouts because of this. It's huge.
I think and tell me if I'm tracking correctly, but FLSA, it's there to protect the employee.
Right.
It doesn't care about the employer. It's there to protect the employee, and they give government a little bit of a break and protect the government a little bit by allowing them to pay out in a comp time setting instead of an overtime setting. But there's certain parameters that you have to meet to be able to utilize that savings that government can save by utilizing comp time. What you're saying is that your interpretation is that in the situation that I gave you, that 8 hours doesn't qualify for that savings that government can get. It actually needs to be paid out at a regular rate.
The only reason I say that, yes, I think that you've summarized my at least strict interpretation reading of the FLSA, because hear me out. It says in the regulations, hours worked, everywhere. So when it says you're earning compensatory time based upon the hours worked, and you have to work to hour 41 before you work 40 hours. Hour 41 is the first time you earn compensatory time, because it talks about hours worked. Compensatory time is only based upon hours worked. If we start getting into using compensatory time and counting annual leave and sick leave as that, we will run into a big problem. That's why I say not only that, compensatory time is, according to the FLSA, is 1.5 hours, not hour for hour. So this whole hour for hour discussion we're having about this type of time I wouldn't classify it as compensatory time, because the FLSA doesn't.
What about overtime as it relates to FLSA? When does overtime accumulate? Is it also on hours worked?
Worked.
Okay, so
according to the reg.
So then according to the reg, the belt and suspender approach would be to pay them a regular 8-hour shift for Saturday, not at time and a half, but at a regular rate, not let them bank that for future use, but actually pay.
But the thing is because I can't, it's hard
I don't care how we get to it, as long as the employee doesn't get screwed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And my sole purpose is we don't screw the employee.
And remember, that once again, this is about, to do that, because it would be extra, at that point it would be extra pay. Because you can conceivably see of individuals who have maybe a lot of annual time accumulated that would love to be able to take a couple of days off and come in on a Saturday, and if they get permission to work, and then they're getting extra pay. Because they're getting paid 40 hours already, and then if they want to come in and work that 6th day a week, they're getting extra pay.
And nowhere would they be falsifying time records.
No.
If I took a vacation on Wednesday, and I come in and work on Saturday, if I went back and put 0 hours work on Wednesday, because I worked 0 hours on Wednesday,
I think that's fine. I was just meant, if you come back and take that Saturday and replace it for a Tuesday that you weren't here, I was like, that's not the business I want to get into.
No.
Yeah, if you come back and take yourself off the schedule, that's fine.
Yeah, as long as, if you're recording like that, and that's fine. My thing is once again, protecting, I know you guys are protecting the employer, I'm protecting the employee, because The concerns that I have, obviously, is making sure that you do this, there's clear policy, that type of, you still need permission to be able to come in and do it. You can't just have your employees saying, well, I took 2 hours annual leave, I'm going to come in on Saturday to catch up because I took 2 hours of annual leave.
Or here's what we see a lot with in time.
If it's not necessary to take, it probably shouldn't.
We'll see this. We'll see for a different department. We'll see 10 hours on Monday. They worked extra 2 hours. Tuesday they took 8 hours vacation. Wednesday they worked 11 hours. Okay? Then we'll see another day of vacation. Blah blah. And maybe they actually worked under 40, but they're going to get paid an extra 6 hours for that week every week from here on out.
Yeah.
Every week. Because
my hamster.
And that's actually
every other day took sick leave.
Why? I mean, that's
part of that's on the onus.
That's on the,
that's right.
The HR department or
But it just creates a lot more compensable time.
But technically, it's not creating incompensable time if they follow the policy. And the policy is you have to work 40 hours.
Well, I mean, so
not in that straight rate.
So let's say there's a highway district situation, for example, where you say, hey, you need to work an extra 4 hours today, and then they come in, and maybe it is an honest, I need to take an annual leave day, and then I'm going to work my normal schedule the rest of the week. Now that 4 hours becomes compensable, I think is what he's saying. So
it's compensable only in that they get paid. Either you want to pay them out or something.
Right.
That they're not donating 4 hours to the county.
No, I totally understand. I think at least what I'm wrapping my mind around it is that if you ask an employee legitimately to stay 4 hours one day and then they have an annual leave day and then they work their normal time, we have no choice but to pay that person out an extra 4 hours for that week. So it's almost like they're getting overtime, even though it is a 1-for-1.
How do you guys facilitate that? So if I understand what I just heard, I take 8 hours on Wednesday off. I'm a 40-hour week employee.
Right.
I take 8 hours sick leave on Wednesday. I come in and work 8 hours on Saturday. We're
deducting it from their...
Do I get immunity?
No, I'm asking you how.
How are you doing it now?
How are you doing it?
Well, I can tell you how we're doing it now, and I don't think it's right. I mean, because this happens all the time. We have mandatory posts in the jail, for example. So let's say that fortunately for us, we have the luxury of a 28-day cycle. Well, let's say even for the civilians, they don't have that luxury. There are mandatory civilian posts. Let's say you're a booking civilian, and so one day you're asked to work 11 hours because Susie can't come in for another 3. She had to take her kid to a doctor's appointment. So that person is, that person works 3 hours over on that day, and then the next 2 days or however long, I guess we can just use it. So she works, over 3 hours here, but the next day she takes a sick day because, she's mad that she had to stay 3 hours late or whatever, and then she works the normal, we still pay her for 40 hours. I don't think it's right. But because she's on a salary.
She didn't actually work 40 hours.
Because she didn't technically get overtime. Okay. So it doesn't count as overtime, but those 3 extra hours.
But you don't reduce her leave.
But listen, vacation and sick time are earned by the employee. You should not penalize me because I've earned, and what I hear you saying is we're paying somebody extra. No, you're not. I've already earned that time. I've already worked.
And you're paying something that has value to take, and now you lose value.
Now you tell me, oh, Joe, you took a day off, so you're going to come in, and now I'm theoretically not going to compensate.
But you're going to get your vacation hours back. The other opposite side of that would be, oh, Joe, we're going to give you 8 extra hours. We're going to give you 8 extra.
It's not 8 extra hours. It's 8 hours I gave you by working. You're not giving me anything.
Right.
We're going to pay you what you accrued.
Here's the thing. If your employer requires you to work those hours, then they should be compensated for those hours, hour for hour. My thing is that this is going to be something that is going to have to be monitored because clearly the intent and goal is that everybody works a 40-hour work week. We don't want them working over because we don't want to pay compensatory time.
overtime, and we don't want these scenarios where people can't take their vacation time without having to be called in on a Saturday. That's not the point of having, being able to take some vacation. But they do need to be compensated. They do need to be compensated, but I do not think that you can take from a pool it's already been used. I don't think you can put toothpaste back in the tube. You've taken the annual leave, it's already been used. You need to compensate them hour for hour for those time worked, and make sure that the managers are monitoring this, because your budgetary costs, this is one of those slippery slopes where it could be abused, where it could be considered now a pay increase.
Just real quick, we'll need to add a section to cover that and call it straight rate compensation, or whatever you need to call it, but that's something we remove that juvenile wanted. That they do every day in hour increments, so we need to add a section so we can add a bucket to pay people and make it payable. So I would make a motion. You want it to be bankable?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same thing, essentially.
That's what they time is money, sure. Like you said, you earned it, it's paid.
Mark, question?
So your term, well, actually, okay, mine. I've worked 40 hours. I'm a non-exempt employee. I've worked 40 hours. And my supervisor says, I'm looking for volunteers because we're getting second half taxes. I'm looking for volunteers that want to come in here on Saturday. And we're going to work, we're going to work 4 hours. We're going to work 6, whatever. Okay. Now, I've worked 40 hours. Now, when she said, I need volunteers to come in. Now, they've got to be compensated somewhere. Because the elected officials say, instead of saying, we're not going to affect our budget by paying you more, but you're going to get a 6 hours, you work Saturday 6 hours, you're going to get 6 hours of comp time.
And I would at least allow me to call it something other than comp time, because I don't want the same terminology used for real comp time versus what we're calling this hour for hour rate time.
For hours worth less.
But I think in the scenario you just gave, it qualifies for time and a half compensatory time because you've worked 40 hours.
Already.
Everything over 40 hours is compensable at 1.5 times.
Okay, I'm talking about currently.
Currently, that's the way it works.
Okay, so, but when you say compensatory, does that mean money, or can that mean comp time?
It can mean
the same thing.
It's comp time, but an elected official
my paycheck's not going to increase.
An elected official can make the decision to pay it out rather than give it to you comp time.
But will they have the latitude to say, but then you're going to be able to,
I think,
work through your supervisor and recoup those 6 hours that you worked Saturday, and take off, the 8 to 5 person can take off on 4 and not be exempt, non-exempt employee.
Because on a non-exempt regular employee, not law enforcement, we're working on a 7-day week. We're working Sunday to Saturday, and that's your timekeeping unit. You can't, if you earn it this week,
you can't
take it off next week under the law to compensate for that.
And before we ever had this discussion, that's the way it was.
That's FLSA, yes. Now, in practicality, is that what happens? I don't know. I mean, there may be people who say, if you work 4 hours on Saturday this week, next week you can take off 6. That may happen, but that's not what the law is.
You're even say time and a half, so you can take 4 hours next week. You got to say you take 6 hours.
But based on the scenario you proposed, it would be hour and a half for every hour worked.
And it would be. It would have to be.
It could be either way.
It could be either compensatory time or the elected official can elect to pay it.
However, if Lisa's interpretation of FLSA is correct, if you have somebody that took annual or sick leave during the week, and then you're in a situation where you have to pay them dollars, then if the elected official in your scenario said, we need volunteers to come in, but I'm not wanting to pay any money for budgetary constraints, you're going to do it at time and a half, then you would have to limit the volunteers to those employees that did not take vacation or sick leave during that week.
Which is not necessarily fair either.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yes, and the thing is like I said, this is, compensatory time, this is one of those things that's a legal term of art, okay? So when you throw a term around and we start calling things compensatory time that aren't really compensatory time, it muddles and confuses things, and lawyers like me on the other side, when I want to come in and say, oh, we have straight compensatory time, we have time and a half, we don't want to use, I'm not opposed to paying these folks or using compensatory time. I don't like using the same term of art that the FLSA uses that is defined as time and a half. Come up with a different terminology, define it in here, and pay them in hour for hour, straight time, or whatever you want to call it. Just keep the distinction between work hours that earn compensatory time under FLSA different from what we're talking about here, which is compensating for straight time work.
I mentioned this, that opinion you guys wrote, which was excellent. One of my concerns about that was that it didn't really address the situation. And I think what we need to do, I don't know that we necessarily need to, we got to call it something, but I think what we should do is we should put an example in here. I think if you use an example, it's probably a little more clear to everybody. And so, and I talked to Aaron about, okay, I think probably to be clear to all of our departments, etc., and I used the scenario that I described for us. The guy's off on Monday, but now suddenly we have a need and we call him in.
Now you got a snow event.
So he works 12 on Saturday. Well, he shouldn't get time and a half for the 12, but he shouldn't. There's a double negative. He should not receive anything for the first 8, right? It's not free time.
Right. It's not because like you said, it's his earned time, and I don't like that. Let's put it back in the,
we need a place to capture it. I think I have a place to capture it. I think I have a place to capture it. We just need to create a bucket where we can capture it, because this happens a lot on a daily basis, I see. There's no place to capture it. People are putting the time in time and a half time, which is not time and a half time. So let's just call it straight time.
Well, so I may be, again...
Straight time for, sorry.
No, you're not.
Something to designate that the straight time is to get to the 40 hours.
Straight time.
Non-regular straight time.
Something
here. How does this sound?
How about non-work?
Non-scheduled straight time.
Non-scheduled straight time.
Or unscheduled straight time.
Here's what I say we do, and I might be telling off myself again, but so in Kronos, there's a pay code that's comp time 1.0x. And there's a pay code that's comp time 1.5x. Both of those go into the same bucket, and here's the rationale for that. One goes in 1 for 1 because you can always go back and track it. One goes in 1.5, and then that's for that scenario. But here's why. Because here's what, in my vision, what would happen. We've got probably 25-ish that have 460 hours of comp time right now.
That they go in the same bucket?
So hear me out. So you've got we've got about probably 20-ish law enforcement officers that have about 460 hours of accrued comp time. That includes any 1-for-1 comp time, and here's why. Because if not, we're going to end up creating a whole other category. What's the accumulation cap on another 480? So it doubles that comp time payout upon separation.
We have to, because then you're paying people for non-comp time. You're paying them.
But my point is, so...
Like I said, these are all the issues.
So we have to create another bucket so it's transparent of what that time is for.
And again, from my perspective, and the reason I'm asking this, because let's say I can always go back for as long as Kronos has been around, and I can tell you exactly how many hours were figured at 1.5 and how many hours were figured at 1. When I send you the sheet every month, I've just already done that on the backside. You just don't see. So...
Just for a transparency thing going forward, we could create this category. you create a bucket with a straight hour for hour that aren't compensable, that just stay for leave time, because I think for auditing basis and transparency basis, we just need to have a countywide policy because people are doing it and a place to stick it. So when they see their pay stub, they say, oh yeah, that was my straight time, or that was my...
But my point is, what happens upon separation?
It's not payable because it's not actually time worked over the 40 hours.
I cannot understand how that would be legal.
Hey, John, I'm just saying, because like I said, I know what you all are trying to accomplish here. My issue is a workable model.
Yeah.
Have you looked at OMS or any of the other state agencies to see if they have a workable model out on this?
They do, and some allow straight time. It's not payable. It's not payable. It's just used for leave. It's not payable on termination of employment. It accrues up to a certain limit.
Now, how is it not payable upon termination?
It's hours worked under 40.
I don't see how that matters.
Yeah, but if we're compensating for hours under 40...
The law is clear.
Because you're already compensated
when you're working at the behest and at the knowing of an employer, it's compensable time. I cannot see how that's legal.
I don't know how anybody could say, because from what I'm hearing is that you're not penalizing these folks for having taken that leave and working those hours. So if they, regardless of whether they leave or they stay, I would still think that would be compensable time.
And you've been inadvertently taking their 8 hours of vacation that they took that week.
That's essentially what you're doing if you remove that time out.
Yeah.
You're removing that time out.
So really, here's my question. Right now, we have a deal where if a holiday falls in a week and you don't work 40 hours, or I'm sorry, you don't physically work 40 hours, but you get 40 hours with the holiday. So you work 32 hours and then 8 hours for a holiday. You come in and you work a Saturday for 4 hours. Right now,
there's no policy right now.
There's no policy for that. But okay, on here,
we're adding it.
Right, we're adding it for that hour to hour.
So to me, instead of just having it as a holiday section, you would utilize whatever you're going to do for those when a holiday hits. You don't just do it for holiday; you do it for annual and sick leave. You just put it all three in the same place. But I think that you've got to compensate. It's hours worked. And
honestly, I think what we do here is we essentially treat everybody as an hourly employee, but we're salaried. And so, that is what it is. But I do not see how legally you could. Because it doesn't matter whether it's 1 hour or 1,000 hours. The bottom line is that's earned time.
Yeah.
You physically work that time, and the law clearly says that is paid time.
And this language, the holiday language, that came from the auditor's office. Is that where it came from? John, wasn't that from the auditor opinion? Does the auditor have an opinion on this category? Are they treating it the same way?
Let me go back.
Are they saying, oh no, it doesn't count?
Yeah. Well, currently there's no policy. We just need a policy because different departments are doing it a different way. So I don't know if somebody wants to propose a policy. I'm going to do first research first and see if we can. Let's come back to this. I hate to, but this is a big hang-up because
it is.
It's there's hours just like you guys are coming.
Well, hours worked is the most heavily litigated thing in all of employment. So
and we need to get it right.
We do.
And we don't need to jump in and do something that's going to come back by us.
Yeah.
And Lisa's going to have to defend us.
Yeah, I don't want to wait.
Well, that's why my head is going.
I totally understand what you're saying. That was my point earlier. Whether you pay them now or whether you pay them later, I don't understand the difference.
Lisa, how would you do it for one of your clerical staff in your office?
We wouldn't approve any overtime. Dude, I'm sorry. Come back next week and get the job done next week. Or if you have a deadline, or if you have a deadline, you don't get to take your annual leave. That's how he does it. If you have a deadline and you're like, oh, I want to go take annual leave, and he's like, wait, you got a deadline. You can't leave because you have a deadline. I'm sorry, your annual leave is denied. Or he approves the annual leave and says, and then he says, no overtime, manage your work accordingly. I hate to say it, we absolutely do not. It takes an act. It takes a emergency situation to have a clerical staff in our office ever work overtime, because he's like, you know what, I don't have to worry about comp time, As long as I manage these folks, and if they are constantly saying they can't get their job done, then we evaluate whether this is a staffing issue or if this is a performance issue. If they can't get their work done in the 40 hours, and if they don't schedule ahead, I mean, this is another thing too, where I go back to the management issue. If somebody is here and they take 2 hours of annual leave, and then they come back and they say, I need to work Saturday to get X, Y, Z done because I took 2 hours of annual leave, at what point, I mean, we all have paid the price for taking vacation and have had to work and plan ahead to be able to take those days off. The goal is if you keep them at 40, maybe you do have to say to that volunteer, sorry, I can't accept your volunteer service because that would require me to pay you overtime, and it's not worth it. But again, if it's necessary, then yes.
As a layperson, when they pay them overtime, can we say, I'm going to, does that mean real money, or can we say you can take 4 hours? You've got 4 hours that you need to use in the next 2 weeks as comp.
Right. I know that we all think of that as that not coming out of the budget because
we don't want to cost any more money.
Right. But here's my point. It goes into a bucket over here called comp time. They're supposed to be taking that comp time off before they use annual or sick leave, and upon separation they get paid hour for hour for whatever's in that bucket.
Comp time.
Yes. So comp time isn't just free time. And that's the other thing too, like it accumulates. Every time I have a detention officer leave with a big huge bucket full of comp time that's been unused, that is payable.
And it's payable at the current wage.
And it's payable at the current wage, hour for hour. Now we do get the benefit of paying hour for hour instead of hour,
But you're paying hour per hour, but it's been calculated.
It's not an hour and a half. Right. It's still pretty
multiplying.
It's still time and a half. But do you see what I'm saying?
So we see a good
So we got to get rid of the thought that when it's just time, we don't have to worry about it. I worry about it all the time.
Paid out a one-time rate.
Because it does do time, and we had a big payout for juvenile.
And they still have like $170,000 worth of liability in comp time right now. You want me to add ours up? And I don't mess with the sheet.
So in the end, let's come back to the
like I
with the good policy.
said, to be free floating, like, it's just time. We're okay. No.
We're pushing the noon hour. I know the BET starts at 1. And I am.
And you don't get less because of that.
Yeah,
I don't get city compensation for that, man.
Is the only thing left the holiday leave?
Well, we gotta flesh this piece out.
We have to come to the policy.
Holidays, and I think we're gonna end up discussing that a little further too.
Okay.
But I think 3.9 and 310 are the two pieces that you have suggested changes to that we haven't addressed so far. Can we recess until tomorrow at 9:30?
It's not going to be in here.
BOE. Can we do it across the hall?
Yeah. I will not be available tomorrow.
I will. You guys.
Okay. Friday?
I won't be here on Friday.
Next week?
Content.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't approve that. Saturday at noon.
Actually, they
Everybody to repeat those words. I never approve comp time, and I will be a happy person.
But my wife doesn't approve that.
My life becomes so much easier.
How about Tuesday next week? The 28th?
In the morning?
In the morning?
Yeah.
Can we recess till then?
Hold on.
Tuesday.
The 28th we have at what time?
What time do you get your?
We have EOC 9:30.
Will that take more than 30 minutes?
Depends.
No idea. Can we say 11? That comes up right for lunch.
Yeah.
We're going to go afternoon.
Can we do the afternoon?
On Tuesday?
No? Mr. Crowell, you're gonna have to change your schedule.
What about Wednesday?
Is that because of clients or work?
All the above.
How about Wednesday the 29th following the OCC meeting?
Just like today?
Just like today.
We're about there, we're almost.
We're close. I've got a couple other things under item 4 that have come to my attention.
You know, and just to reiterate, we just need to build a leave bucket in the system for hour, because people are putting those hour time right now into comp time. It's hour and a half.
Creating formulas to
calculate it, yeah.
Well, I think we need to research it too before we waste time doing that.
Week from today?
Week from today, following the BOC, 9:30 a.m.
And you're recessing this meeting until
Recess this meeting until then.
We're not adjourning.
Not adjourning. I make the motion that we recess till Wednesday, March 29th at 9:30 a.m.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your work today. We will continue to research and...